Floating apparitions All right, folks. Welcome to Paranormal Roundtable. Sorry, it's a little bit loud. It probably sounds a little echoey in here. Um, but here you go. But here we are, and I'm sorry that we're not in a more professional setting like my studio. Love to be in my studio, and but I would have to walk upstairs, and currently I cannot even walk, much less go upstairs. So not walking stairs equals not being in studio. I do, however, from the studio have this. It's just a magnet. But anyways, hopefully you can power through this. Thank you, appreciate that. That's my wife. She cleaned my glasses for me because I'm incapable of even doing that apparently. So here we go. Um, I wasn't going to do a show today, and I promise you, I'm going to tell you the absolute truth. The weirdest thing. It Yesterday, last night, I was in the most excruciating pain, and I am still in severe pain. So any prayers or good thoughts or whatever, is greatly appreciated. Right? Whatever you think you can do. But I am in very bad pain. But I did say that I was going to do Sunday. And I saw how excited everybody was and how happy people were to have me back. And so, like I said, I've had about 100 pep talks with different various people calling me. I would say I counted, there were about 32 altogether, 32 very important people in this field, and about 100 people from my everyday life that have grown attached to the show, and probably 1,000 listeners. I'm joking. It's probably not 1,000, but there was a lot. They kept telling me to, suck it up and do the show. And we don't care how you feel or, what you want or your piece. We just want the show. So come on, step to it, Betty. Let's go. Let's do it. So here we are. I'll tell you what's going on. I had pain in my foot, the top of my foot on Friday. So I think it was out of alignment. So my wife knows how to adjust it because my best friend, my female best friend, Heather, is a chiropractor. And so my wife just simply watched her do it a couple times. And, she went and she learned how to do it. So now she knows how to adjust. So she adjusted my foot, and I thought that was the end of it. But then I woke up Saturday in severe pain. And then it just got progressively worse to the point where last night I felt like I would rather be dead. It is gout. I think it is gout. I've had it multiple times. I had never had gout in my life until I had the Omicron. And then after that, I've had it multiple times, and kidney stones. Before that, nothing. None of those things. And now my uric acid levels are through the roof. But it seems to be a recurring theme with people who've had the Crohn. And my doctor told me that it was pretty commonplace. People my age, after having that particular strain, it does something to you. And so, yeah. So here we are. Solovino, thank you for that donation. Greatly appreciated. Donations are not expected, but they are really appreciated. It's been a long time, and we're back trying to get back on track and get to what we do best, which is retell people's encounters. While I was gone, and like I said the other day, I had no plans on coming back, and it was even almost paranormal, weird the way it happened with Abe the other day. And I just sat there watching, and I was like, if he's not going to come on, then I'm going to do something. I'm going to go on my channel. But if he manages to get it together and come on, then I won't do it. And so that being said, it did happen. His equipment didn't work. It kept malfunctioning. And so I had to step up and I did it. And so I just made the decision. Let me change the banner there, to come back. because I had lost my passion for it. Thank you, Susie Jago, for that donation. Appreciate the love. I really do. Um, and I made a decision. I said, I'm going to do this. And if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to do it every Sunday that I can. Um, we are, like I said before, about 90% moved out of this place. We are getting the keys tomorrow to another place, and we're going to be going there hopefully when my foot heals. So if anybody's planning on trying to come and do something to me because they think that I'm weak and whatever, well, I still have my trigger finger, right? So don't come breaking into my house because you guys have made it clear that you have weapons. Well, so do we. And I will defend myself. And I hate to have to say that, but I've been getting threats. But the threats have slowed down. Thankfully, I'm only being threatened about twice a day instead of 50 times a day like I was before, because they were happy that I was gone, so they were kind of slowing down. But day after the show, I get a really nasty message from somebody who's hiding in the shadows and saying, "Oh, you should have stayed gone. Oh, now hell's coming for you." Blah 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 blah. Hell's coming for everybody. All right. It's called taxes. All right. Another thing I'm going to tell you, if you're somebody who's thinks that this is a game or it's cute or funny or whatever, I do believe it's spiritual warfare, and I don't think that it is a coincidence that this has happened. Now, there's been 2 or 3 things that have happened very strange to us over the last couple of days. So I know these people are not above doing something. Okay. Now, I will say this. It's not going to stop me, and I'm not going to be afraid of it. Okay. I did have the douchebag from the vampire cult thing message me and did tell me that he saw my future. Now, he himself didn't see my future, but he saw an alternate reality of my future. And he says it's very grim, very bad. And he also said that the best thing I could do is just go away and stay in retirement because the people that are after me are going to get me. And so I was like, zoinks, I'm scared. So my 370-pound ass walking around the house with a machine gun because I'm terrified. I've already shot several holes in the wall, thinking it was a monster, and it was just a shadow of the cat. I also clipped one of my animals. It's okay. It just hit the fur, scared the heck out of them, but that's it. They're okay. It was one of my goldfish. I'm kidding, folks. I'm kidding. We all know goldfish don't have fur, okay? No, it was one of the guinea pigs. He's okay. He forgives me. He just screams and says he wants lettuce, and I give it to him, and then we're all good again. There again, that didn't happen. And I'm not living in fear. I'm not, I'm writhing in agony and pain from having to move around. It is really hard. I have had to come up with my wife, me, and my nephews had to help come up with an ingenious way to get me from the bedroom into here, which involves using this. This is my Gandalf stick, and it's like, hey, you shall not pass. Gas in here. It's terrible. Don't do it. But yeah, so that's helped to get me from point A to point B. I wanted to talk tonight, and thank you for that donation. That's Abe Seas. I really appreciate that, brother. And people say we do look like brothers. I would be the more handsome of the brothers, of course, but nonetheless, I'm joking, Abe. You're a handsome guy. Suave, as they say. So I see a lot of really cool people in here. Hey, Hellbent Holler. How's everybody doing? Donnie Cho, he says stuff. Thank you for that membership. Mary Angel Magdalene, and everybody that's in here that's the regulars, and maybe some new people, Blondes and Booze. I see Brandy in here. So we got some good people in here tonight. What I wanted to talk about tonight, and this is going to be a little bit weird and shocking because a lot of the things that we do talk about are weird and shocking. This was one of the stories that I had planned on doing before I went on my hiatus or had gone into retirement. And so I was talking to Anthony about it last night while we were sitting out on the porch in the deck. We do have a nice deck on the back porch back there, or back porch deck, whatever you want to call it. And the weather here has been wonderful. I know that I watched the Cowboys game earlier. I watched the Texans too, both of them on the road, and they won their openers. Yay for the Texans, the Cowboys, and my Buckies. They won too. Unfortunately, my Raiders just can't get it together. They got smoked by the Chargers. Come on, man. Yeah, we're hoping that they can get it together. It would have been great to have all 4 of them win. Thank you, Veronica, for that donation, and Infinite Air. Thank you for that. It says, we missed the show a lot. I was checking every day to see if you were back. Don't leave us again. Well, I don't plan on it, but my mental health and my physical health are what matters, and the safety of my family is important. But I'm not going to let these people bully me and punk me out and chase me off. And that's not why I left. I didn't leave because I just wanted to, because they were scaring me. I was just sick of the BS and just was like, you know what, I'm done. These people just keep on doing whatever it is that they do, and having their little hate pep rallies or whatever. And Sugar Britches, there you are. How you been? Good to see you too. T. Cutler, thank you for that donation, Sugar Britches. T. Cutler, thank you for the donation. We appreciate it. Thank you. Glad to see everybody here. Philip Barnes, great guy. I went to eat dinner with him and his wife one night. Good people, nice people. A lot of the paratroopers in the house. Wedge Antilles, how you doing? Amy Creel, Artistic Bunny. I see a lot of you in here. I can't even name all of you guys. How's everybody doing? John Sablon, Benny, Elijah, everybody. So what we got while we're waiting to get everybody into the chat here, and there's probably going to be more, but I want to talk about something. There was a guy who, my friend works in the oil business. Actually, my cousin, who's a former bull rider, and one of my best friends from back in the day. He's like a brother to me. He works in the oil field. Right. A lot of people I know actually do. One of my uncles, well, my uncle's best friends does too. And it's Texas, right? And so there was a guy that we knew from years ago. And so when I was BSing with my friend who works out in Wolf Camp, he tells me, this guy we used to know named Eddie G. We called him Eddie G. I'm not going to say his last name, but I asked about him. I said, how's he doing? And he says, well, we have another friend who has a place down in Central America where they do DMT. And if you are a drug addict, they can take you. Now, I'm not suggesting you do this because I don't know, how well this works here. But if you have that problem, thank you, Alan, for that donation. And let's see who else we got here. I'll be anybody who donates. I'm just going to thank you at the end of the show, because through StreamYard, it gives you that ability to just go through and just say, hey, thank you to everybody. So we don't interrupt the show, but we do appreciate the donations. It's greatly appreciated. Because, we're on here begging all the time because, as you can see, I need it. I'm fat. I got to keep eating. According to these people, I'm 600 pounds, although I'm not. I can lift that, but that's in their mind. That's what they say. So thank you for the donations. I'm sure that it is something that you do from the heart. And the best thing about it for me is that it pisses them off. So thank you so much. So here's what happened. Eddie, I reached out to him because my friend who works out in the oil field, he told me, he says, he went down, he was on drugs and he had some issues. And his sister, who since passed away, had recommended our friend down in Central America to do DMT therapy. Now, what they do is they will drink ayahuasca or they'll smoke DMT, and it's synthesized. There's different things, there's different ways to do it. And so what he did was he went down there, and him and another friend of mine, Adam, who I know 3 Adams, Adam was another one. They all went down there to see if after an intervention, if our friend down there could help Eddie get off of heroin. Eddie has a very colorful history. I'll tell you this. Eddie actually defended his life in a foreign country and took a man's life. He got arrested. He was acquitted by that particular country's government, and he was let go. That was years ago. Now, he had a horrible existence at one point when I was younger, and I knew him, and when he came up in conversation, I thought my friend was going to say, "Oh, he's still horrible. He's doing this, whatever." He's like, "No, you should talk to him. His life is completely different now." He used to take heroin, go to sleep, then he would come out of it, then he would do cocaine to get up. This led to me not even talking to him anymore, along with like most of the other people in his life, including his own mother. Well, his stepmother who raised him. Eddie's dad died years before working in the oil fields. And so he got a job with my friend working out in the oil field, and it didn't last. It was something. Let me bring Anthony on here. Hey, Anthony.
Hey.
So Anthony has to use his phone to do this because we have some of our stuff packed up. And so we're kind of doing it the best we can here. Thank you for joining me, Anthony. You've heard this before.
My camera off at some point because I have to keep holding it, and I don't like when there's movement and then just distract from the story. So if I turn the camera off, I'm still here.
Yeah, you could turn the camera off and just have your voice. That's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
So, because like I said, we were planning on being in the studio and everything, and then barely moved my foot, and it pain and it hurts. So, Anthony, you've already heard this story. We talked about this a couple nights ago, and then again last night we were talking about this particular. And I had mentioned to you, should we retell this particular encounters? And you said yes. And of course, the foot thing happened. We didn't think we were going to do it, but I thought it was interesting, some of the things that he talked about. So I reached out to him. We reconnected, and about a month and a half ago, he relayed, I'd say by about 2 months ago now. This is what, first week of September. It was probably first week of July, right before my birthday, maybe, or something like that. We talked, and he's doing very well. He's living out in San Diego, and well, he's in between San Diego and LA, but he's doing very well. And I'll say something about him. He looks like the actor Adam Driver. Like, I'm not joking. When I first saw him on Facebook, I was like, I thought that because he wasn't using his real name, he was using like a pseudonym name or whatever. And I told my brother, I said, "Man, this guy looks like Adam Driver." And my brother looks at it and goes, "That's Eddie." I said, "That's Eddie." I'm like, "Holy crap, it is." So, so he really does look like, so imagine Adam Driver, but with longer hair and pulled back in a ponytail. And so he's like a surfer dude, real laid back and chill. There's not a lying bone in this guy's body. Okay. So I can tell you what he told me. I'm not going to sit up here and say 100%. I know this is true because I don't 100%. Nobody does. But I believe him. I believe that what he told me is his truth. I think that he believes it. And I think that he's being honest. Well, I really do. And so what happened to him when he took DMT? He took it several times. The first time he went down there and he took it, he stayed there for a week. And he took it and he thought that was it. He felt fine. And so he came back. I'm missing one step. He took it here first. And he thought, "Oh, I'm good. I got this." So when he went down there and they did the whole therapy, whatever, he took a longer version of it. And what ended up happening is, what is it? So what ended up happening is he ended up taking this substance and ended up becoming like a stronger person for it. When he came back to the States, he was clean. And he went through all the steps, and he felt like he had conquered his addiction. But within 3 months, he had gone right back and was doing it again because it was the people he was around. That's my opinion. So he went back and he did it again. Only this time, he stayed for 3 weeks. And he did this sort of therapy that they have down there. And they go over this. Now, I'm not going to promote it or say anything more because I don't know, and I don't want to promote something, and then people go and they do it, and it hurts them or whatever. It is still an illegal substance here in this country, And I'm not going to promote it and say, hey, go do it, because I don't know if I believe in it. I have heard of people taking hallucinogens to get off of worse drugs like cocaine and heroin and meth.
Yeah.
And apparently it is a therapy that works, because hallucinogens, believe it or not, they are not addictive.
Yeah, they
So
also use them for microdosing therapy, which is like taking minute doses of it that aren't hallucinogenic, but over time produce like the positive benefits of like just helping people get off of hard drugs, you know?
yeah, and a lot of people have told us their encounters that they've had while they have been on some sort of substance, like mushrooms, for example, psilocybin, or taking peyote or acid, which is LSD. A lot of people are scared of it because it's called acid, so they think it's the word is like, it's like, oh my gosh, they'll snort a mountain of cocaine, but if you were to tell them about acid, they'll freak out and
Yeah.
jump off the cliff. But it to me, having in my past understood how these things work, that's all I'm going to say. It's one of those things where when you are like in his situation, it was do or die. He OD'd twice and he lived. He was brought back to life, and that's why when he OD'd that second time, that's why he went back down to Central America to finish and do the therapy correctly. And he went with a friend of mine who's now deceased. She died. She passed away. She took her own life, but she went down there with him and helped him with all of this. I say took her own life, although it's still up for debate. It's weird because there's a couple people in my life that have died mysteriously, and there are suspects, but they can't prove it. So, and that's happened, like I said, more than it should have. Most people don't know anybody that's happened to. I know like 3 people. So, yeah, and the people that may or may not have been involved just got away with it. I mean, if they were involved. So I'm not going to mention names, but anyway, she was one of them, and she went down there with him and she helped him. And she took it too. And what's even more interesting is that when they took it together, this little group that took it together, they had a very similar trip. They call it that, like a trip, right? So they saw some of the same things, things that defy logic, having conversations with otherworldly beings. Now, the one thing that he saw the first time he took DMT was the person that whose life he had taken, and this person had another being standing behind him, and he could not make out the features of the other being. This was the first time he took it. This is what he told me, and he said that man was standing there, and he said, "I forgive you." And he asked him for forgiveness, and the man said, "I forgive you." And then the man asked him for forgiveness because that man tried to take his life and rob him. He didn't know the guy. It was a robbery. And luckily for him, there was a witness to it. But this man confessed his sin, and then he was gone. And it was a young guy. Guy wasn't even 20 years old that did this. And so he was also a young guy, Eddie, whenever this happened to him. And so he said it was very therapeutic. And he goes, and the trip didn't last long. And I saw these 2 weird little creatures, these diminutive little creatures. We in Spanish would say duendes. And they were sort of like tan-skinned little beings with little sacks on their heads, is the way he described it, like these little brown sacks, And he said they looked like little brown Smurfs, and they had these weird little pants, and they were like grabbed him by his hands, and then they walked him into this light, and he was back in this reality. He said it felt like it was like he was there for like an hour or 2, but only a few minutes had actually passed. And so whenever he went down to do this in South America, he actually, the first time he did it, he was there for a week. He did it twice, and he didn't complete the whole course, which is a 3-week course. And he came back because he thought, oh, I'm good, I'm cured, whatever. he had some weird things happen. The second trip, he said that the first trip down there was similar. You know, it was, he didn't see the guy that he had taken, whose life he had taken in defense of himself. None of that. What he saw were these weird little dwarf-like beings that looked malformed, and that they were coming at him and getting in his face. And when he would look into this darkness, he described it as like a nothing, just like a void. He would see these faces come at him. And he says, if you've ever tripped on acid and closed your eyes, which I understand what he's talking about, you will see like faces morphing and coming towards you. That's what he said it was like. And he said that it was weird, to say the least, and it scared the crap out of him. And he felt like he was going to die. And he started panicking. And so he came out of it, and he was just like, I don't want to do it anymore, or whatever. So I think like 3 days went by, and they talked him into doing it again. And they talked him through it. And they said, look, that is the lower vibrational beings. And if you go into this with the lower vibrational mindset, then what's going to happen is you're going to attract those beings. And according to the guy, Rick, that does the training down there, Rick told him, he says, look, he's like, if you go into this and you're scared, you balk at it, it makes you nervous or whatever, what's going to happen is you're going to go into it and you're going to attract those lower vibrational entities. And that's where you're going to be. And
it's like
you're
a
going to be
self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, it's a self-fulfilling, yeah. And so eventually he went back, he did it, and he said he powered through the first layer of these beings. And he said he kind of floated up these, like this slope. But as he looked down, he got nervous and he wanted to be corporeal. So he said it was weird. He imagined like stairs. And so the next thing you know, he was walking, and he goes, it was like I had a body. He goes, I created a body for myself. He goes, I don't know what I was. I never saw myself. But I could see in like 360, you know what I mean? And I said, oh, wow, you must have been in a completely different level, you know? And he said, I was. And I went to a place that was full of light. When I got to the top of what seemed like a well, he's like, I floated upwards, and I ended up coming up almost like out of water. He goes, and then I went up into what would be considered like space. He's like, and I could look down and I could see the earth. And he said the earth was just like a round, not a ball, but it was just like, it just looked like a flat plane, and it was round. And people have said this. We talked about this the other night. He said that there were like little chunks of what white that looked like went all the way around the earth could be the ice wall. I asked him that, and I said, what do you think it was? He goes, I don't know. I couldn't tell. It was too far away. He's like, and then a voice spoke to me, and it told me that I needed to cleanse myself and that I was killing my body. And I told this voice, I said, I know. And when he asked this voice who it was, it says, I am you. It says, I am everything. I am everyone. And we are all together one. You're a part of me. And so I asked him, I said, was this entity that you talked to, was it God? And he says, I didn't say it was an entity. I said it was a voice. He says, and I don't know if it was God. I don't know what it was. He said, but it was a consciousness, and it began to replay things in my mind of my past lives and the current life that I was in. I saw bits and pieces of like fragmented thoughts going through, boom, 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 boom. He's like, and I saw in all these weird colors that did not exist in my life. You know, he goes, this should not be happening. And he goes, but it did. And he's like, what's crazy was eventually he was shot back down into earth, and he was floating around. He says, I remember floating around and looking at the other people that were laying there with their eyes closed, having their own experiences. And I saw two of them kind of hovering over their bodies. And he says, holy crap, we're out of our bodies. We're all out of our bodies. One of them, he said, looked like a ball with a face on it. And he said it was weird. It almost looked like a balloon with like a cartoon face drawn on it, kind of hovering. And there was like this string attached into the chest. And the other person was this dark amorphous shape that was kind of like moving and changing, and you could see this black vapor coming off of it, and it was gradually becoming more light. And it was a female. And so eventually they went back into their bodies, and he woke up, and everybody started talking about what they had seen and how they had had these different experiences. And so the next 2 days was just spent going over what they had experienced in a group setting. And then for whatever they were willing to talk about, some people didn't want to talk about it and they were freaked out. And then, of course, they opened up and they had this serious discussion over the next 2 days. And then he himself talked about what happened to him by himself. Now, he said that, and I said, well, that's great. So it was all love and light. You came back to the States and you're doing better. And he said, Wolf, he said, let me ask you this. He's like, you were one of the last people to abandon me. And when he worded it that way, I felt kind of attacked. I was like, well, I didn't abandon you. I had to leave your life because, well, I gave you money, because you said you needed food. And then we got into this whole thing. And he said, well, I guess we lost Anthony. That's all right. But he said, no. He goes, I didn't mean to word it that way, abandon. He goes, but you hung in there longer than most people. Now, Eddie was a martial artist. And Eddie, I myself do not know how to use nunchucks. If I start playing with them, I will smack myself in the face. You know why I know that? Because I've done it twice. I do know how to use a few other weapons. But this guy, like, he knew how to use nunchucks. It was unbelievable. He knew how to use a lot of different weapons, and he was almost like autistic when it came to weaponry. And him and a friend of mine named Tak, who's from Japan, they worked together, and he used to work for Tak, but then he stole from him because he needed drugs. And so I told him, I said, look, man, I gave you some money. And next thing you know, you're high and you're in a ditch, and my other friend, we helped you. He went to my friend Arash, who owns the club, and did the same thing, playing around, whatever. And I have his permission to say, so I'm not saying his last name, so he's okay with it. And I'm not trying to talk bad about him or put him on the spot. But he says, look, he says, as well as I do, that it's really hard to stop doing substances, certain types of substances. And so he says, I came back to the States and I thought that was it. I was clean. And so for 6 months, I was clean. Now, he told me, he says, you, Wolf, you're not like me. I have an addictive personality. He's like, I saw you quit dipping snuff, just like boom, whatever. Because we weren't hanging out at that time, but I posted it on Facebook and I said, hey, I just stopped dipping. I quit. I just literally cold turkey quit dipping snuff. And nicotine is the most addictive substance known to man. Heroin is very addictive, but it isn't actually as addictive as nicotine, believe it or not. If you can quit nicotine, you can quit anything. And so I told him, I said, it's funny because you didn't smoke and you barely drank, you weren't much of a drinker. He smoked a lot of marijuana, and then he would do whatever. So he said, he goes, I took some marijuana. He goes, and I had been smoking pretty regularly. He's like, but then I smoked some really strong sativa, and he goes, and I don't know what happened. I just got this craving, got this urge. He goes, and sure enough, I was back on the smack. He goes, and so I took a heavy dose. He goes, and I felt it, and I thought, this is it. This one's going to kill me. I'm done. He's like, so I laid there on the floor, not able to get up. He goes, and I came out of my body. He goes, when I did, I saw this black bird-like creature, this entity that was there, and it was kind of moving its head back and forth, very bird-like. And he goes, and it was squatted down, kind of like how a gargoyle looks, He says, and it just jumped off of my dresser, grabbed my now non-corporeal self, my spirit, and took off and dragged me to a dark hole within the earth. He says, we flew for miles. This was in New Mexico. He says, and then it just shot down into this hole, which I didn't think we were going to. I thought we were going to crash land, and I was going to be, in the middle of this desert. And instead, we end up in this hole, and there's this spiral that just keeps going and going and going. He goes, and I don't know how far down we were, but it just spit both of us out into this room, into this dark chasm. And I look up and he goes, and I could tell like my body was not fully corporeal, but it wasn't like how you would imagine being a ghost. It was like I did have some substance to me. He goes, and when I went toward the wall, I could put my hand and it would kind of bounce off, but then if I pushed, it would go through it. It was that state. Now, I know this because I've been in that state. I know what that is. That's the astral plane. It's an intermediate zone. And so he started to talk about what happened to him there. This bird-like entity was sitting in the corner of this chasm, and he was looking around, and 5 or 6 of these little diminutive elf-like beings came out and began to talk to him in this gibberish type language, which he could not understand. And it was like, and he was like, I can't understand you. I can't understand you. And then one of them, he said they were kind of cute, these little dudes. One of them took his hat off and he rolled it up and he whipped him with it, like smacked him. And he said, I felt the pain and it struck my hand. He goes, and even though it went through my hand, I felt it. And then it began to talk in this weird language that eventually I began to understand. And he goes, and then they stopped talking altogether. And then it was just like this weird telepathy, which was like a type of communication for them, which was just like a type of imagery. And so he said it was so weird. He goes, we began to communicate. He goes, and then we all kind of locked minds together. And this bird-like entity sat there the whole time, just observing him. And these beings literally told him that he was going to be living there with them for the next 1,000 years. And that was going to be his life, and it was going to be a penance. And they began to walk him, and he couldn't move away or break free from these beings. And they began to walk him down this dark corridor, and he looked side to side, and there were these doors that you could see through, but you could tell that there was something there. And in each one of these little tiny rooms, these cells, as he called them, were different types of beings. Some of them would just sit there looking all forlorn, and some of them would come up toward the door and try to look and talk to him and try to communicate, and he couldn't understand them. And they said, don't speak to these people, you can't help them. And some of them looked like people. Some of them looked humanoid. Some of them just looked like floating balls of plasma or blobs. And he said that they just kept walking him. And eventually he gets down to the end of the corridor. He says, and at the very end, he looks and he sees what looks like an alien gray, like a stereotypical gray alien. And it's standing there, and it communicates with him telepathically. And what it told him was very, very just disheartening. It was like, welcome to your new life. And he said, I don't belong here. I shouldn't be here. And that being told him, you wouldn't be here if you weren't supposed to be here. And then it just sat back down or lowered its head and continued staring off into the ether. And so it took him through that wall. And then the next thing you know, he hears this loud booming voice, and all these little trolls that were around him, they looked deformed now, and they were ugly and hideous. And they were all holding something in their hand. And when he told me, he says, what they had in their hands was a mask. He goes, these things were wearing like a type of mask, and they put their masks back on, and their hideousness was gone, and it was just a nondescript like face. He's like, and then I realized that's why they all look the same, because they were wearing like a mask to hide their ugly deformity. And he said that what ended up happening, he was released. And he said, and I said, how did that happen? He goes, because my sister was shaking me awake, and the booming voice was hers. And he said, so I opened my eyes and I look up, and there is my sister. And he goes, I'm going back in and out of consciousness. And he's like, then eventually he's like, I wake up and I'm in the hospital. And then they put me in a treatment center for addiction. And he goes, and I was trapped in there for like 6 weeks. And eventually they let me out. And he said, that was years ago. And he said that I haven't touched anything. It's been over 10 years of sobriety. But he did say this. He said about 4 years ago, he decided to go back down to do. This is a different place because my friend Rick had moved from that other country to Belize, and so he goes. I went back down to meet with Rick. He goes, and Rick was in another country now, and he goes, and I took DMT again. He goes, I started getting the urge to do cocaine, and he goes, it's almost like a gateway. Well, it is a gateway. It's like marijuana, cocaine, heroin. Like it's like the stages, you know. And he says, and I got the urge, and he says, I think I need to go back and reaffirm all of this. He says, I did begin to pray. He said, I went to this outreach church program. He goes, I moved out to California because the girl that I was seeing, who I met in one of the programs, you know, said she was going out there to stay with her family. And so he was in Modesto, and then he moved to San Diego. And of course, he likes the beach, so he's always at the beach. And he says, I just took it chill and started to live my life. He's like, but then I had a weird experience, and I actually drowned. He's like, I was out there on my surfboard. He goes, and I started getting really lightheaded. And he goes, the next thing you know, I'm breathing in, you know, water, and I'm waking up. Somebody's pushing water out of my body. And luckily for me, he goes, a couple of the other surfers saw me fall off my board, and I was on the beach, and one of them was a paramedic, thank God, and he knew CPR. And he found out that he suffers from low blood pressure, and like his blood pressure gets so low, like, you know, it'll go whatever, and then it'll spike back up, and it'll cause all kinds of problems. And so he had some issues. He also suffers from AFib and heart palpitations. And I said, how does that work? I mean, if you're taking this DMT, and he says, well, it's a risk for sure. He's like, but I didn't know. It was like trying to get off of the hard drugs is a full-time job. You never stop trying to keep yourself clean. And so I applaud him for that. So what he did was he went back down, he talked to Rick, and I've known Rick since 1997, a long time I've known that guy. And so he went there, and he had 2 more experiences. This time when he came back to the States, he moved into a house. And let's just say that the house was not a pleasant place. He was living with 3 other people, and it wasn't the people he was living with. In fact, I know 2 of them. Brian in particular is a good friend of mine. And so Brian could attest to this. He was one of the people that I've known for years and years. And he's always been kind of a hippy dippy dude. He worked as a lifeguard for years and years. No matter what his job was, he would always do lifeguarding in the summertime. He's just one of those kinds of people. Hey, D, what's going on? So anyways, Brian, like I said, he's one of those people, and he stayed at my house for a few months, and he said, dude, you know, the things that happened at that house that they were living in, this one was off of Slaughter Lane, could rival anything that happened to me and D, Scorpion, Willie, Squid, you know, that we witnessed. He said that when he was at that house, that he had been being plagued by a type of being that he thinks the last time he took DMT, he gave it permission. Now, you got to understand something. If you're dealing with these types of entities and you give them permission, because a lot of times they'll trick you, they'll talk to you, and if you tell them, oh, it's okay, you know, I want to be your friend, whatever, and then they, oh, okay, that is permission for them to attach to you, latch on to you. And so he said that it was like ridiculous, dude. He said that this thing, like, it was like I could hear it talking inside my head. He goes, and I'm not schizophrenic, Wolf. He goes, I've, you know, done a lot of drugs and had, you know, rough life, but I'm not a schizophrenic. And he said that it was like being schizophrenic. He goes, this thing would be telling me to eat. And as long as I've known this guy, Eddie, he's never been a big eater. He's always been kind of thin. And you know, and now he said over the last, you know, several years he's been into weightlifting and stuff, and he's gotten pretty developed, and so he's not that scrawny kid that we all knew. And he does take martial arts still. He's got a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He's a pretty tough guy, I seen him throw some hands. He's more of a grappler, but he told me, he says, dude, I can handle myself. He's like, but this thing, one day he goes, there was this guy at Whole Foods, right? The grocery chain that's all over the country now. It started here in Austin. And he said, dude, and this guy was arguing with his girlfriend and he was just screaming and screaming at her. He goes, and at this point, he goes, this thing, whatever it was that was on me, he goes, it would be like talking to me in my ear, and I would look like I would see something, and on my left side, and I would turn, and there would be nothing there. And then he said, it said something to these people because the guy, he goes, I didn't say anything. And this guy turns around and was like, what the F did you say? What did you say, Holmes? And he said, it was this big, bald-headed Hispanic dude. And Eddie's like me. He's half Hispanic, half white, and he speaks Spanish. And the guy said a couple words, like chingo tu madre, and called him a coleto and all this other stuff. So he started talking back. And then the next thing you know, he goes, we're throwing hands in the parking lot, dude. And I'm beating the crap out of this dude, man. He goes, and I'm like, I'm doing a Kimura on this guy. That's a type of jiu-jitsu move. And I know he's capable of it. And so he goes, I choke this dude out. And he goes, and then I get up and I get in my car and I leave my groceries right there in the basket. And I'm driving down the road and I'm like, what did I just do? And so he goes back to the house and he said that he was talking to his friends. One of them's Ken, his name's Kenneth, and the other one's name is Brian. And he told them what he had done and what had happened. And Brian said, it could be something in this house. And he referenced my house. And he said, when I was living with Wolf and Willie, there was weird stuff that was happening that is kind of reminiscent of what's going on here. And he said that I think this place is haunted, but like it's beyond like just being a haunted, spooky house. He said, I saw a guy walking down the hallway because this was a big 5-bedroom house, but it was big, like a Victorian style house or whatever. Like it was big, like a big, and it was past Slaughter Lane. So it was out kind of in the middle of nowhere, but still in town, if that makes sense. And it's not there now. It's been torn down. But the thing is, I remember that place. I remember going by there a couple times and thinking, man, that place looks spooky and haunted. And the people that had bought the house at one point, they wanted to make it into a halfway house, which is how they ended up finding out about it because two of these guys were in AA with the people who had been, or it's the drug program. I forgot what it's called, like Al-Anon or something, whatever it is. And so they knew each other from way back. And so they were like, good friends. And so they got a good deal on it. Kind of like what happened to me. You end up in a haunted, creepy place because the rent is cheap, right? And you're like, okay, I can deal with this. No, wrong. It just gets worse. And so he says that this thing, he goes, this doesn't have anything to do with whatever is in this house. And what Brian saw walking down the hallway was a man who was walking and he had like holes in his body and there was like blood coming out of his chest and his abdomen, like he had been shot. And he was like in shock and he was just like, what in the hell? He goes, and the guy looks up and just like starts to fall and then he just disappears. Like, boom, he's gone. And he said that was one of the most terrifying things that he heard about. This didn't happen to Eddie, but it did happen to him, to Brian. And another guy that lived there was a bouncer that used to work for us years ago. And he said, hey, he goes, that place was haunted. I stayed there for like 2 months with him. Well, Eddie stayed there for 6 months. He's like, and I don't know how I did it. He's like, it was an insane asylum. He goes, and I would be woken up by these like voices, like people were arguing and screaming at each other in my bedroom. He goes, and then I wake up and he goes, and I see this man on the floor, like literally with his hands around the throat of a woman. He goes, and I jump up and I run over there and I grab the dude, and there was a physical connection with this guy, and then it was gone. And then he hears this demonic laughter, which he recognized as whatever that thing was on him. Now, when we started talking, I told him about the vampire cult and what they called the others. Now, he, like me, Eddie, has read the Kabbalah, and he understands what that is. He doesn't practice it. He's just like me. He's like, it's like Gaetano calls himself an astronaut. He just observes, that if you can read those kind of things and not be taken in by it, more power to you. But if you're one of those people that's influenced by it or you get tempted, don't do it. Don't do it. Um, but hey, Joe, how you doing? Hey, Wendy, how y'all doing here? Rita, Lawrence, everybody, good to see you. Jackie, 86. So what ended up happening? He said this being that was attached to me. He said my sister took me to see a priest. Now, this was a childhood family friend. He was retired. He was no longer working in the priesthood because he was in hospice. So they went to the hospice, and he says, "Look," he gave him some holy water and the rosary beads and all this other stuff. And he says, "Look," he goes, "at my age," he's like 75. He was dying of cancer, and he said, "You know, I'm still very much a member of the Catholic faith." He's like, "But sometimes there are people who have gifts or abilities that can help you." He goes, "So I'm going to send you to a curandera." And now, what that is in Spanish is a healer. This what these healers do, they're like magic practitioners, but they're not witches per se. They don't call themselves that. I personally, me, for my money, I would never go to one, but that's me. And I'm not judging him for doing this, but he wanted this thing off of him, right? And so one of our friends, who's actually Buddhist, who's a Taoist, told us one day when me and my brother were talking to him at this pool hall. I don't play pool, but my friend was in a pool tournament, and I was there supporting him. And we were up at a pool hall in Fort Worth, and this guy literally said, he says, "Dude, I can see." He goes, "I could see on Eddie's back this black bird-like entity." Now, what I'm going to tell you is there are these entities. When your heart is not right with God, is not right with Christ, it's not like when you die, there's a one-way ticket to heaven or hell, right? These entities lie in wait. And what they do is they snatch you up when you die, and they take you to wherever they're going to take you. That entity, probably had some sort of, he was some sort of deliverer of souls to these elf-like creatures that live within the earth, and they're probably harvesting these souls. Now, what's really weird is that he actually could see this thing sometimes, but only in the mirror. And he said one time I was combing my hair and I saw this thing kind of on my back, and I was like, "Whoa!" And he goes, and I throw the brush back, and I nearly hit my girlfriend. He goes, and I turn around, and I'm like, "What in the hell is that? What did I just see?" And he said that it was a harpy looking type creature, but it was more bird than human. And so when he looked up pictures of what this thing could be, and so, remember the other night when we were talking, and I said we were going to talk about the boogeyman. We're still going to do that, but not tonight, because this is what we're talking about tonight. Me and Anthony made the call yesterday. We decided if my foot would allow that we would be able to do this. So I just had to tell my foot, "Look," and right now, folks, I'm going to be real honest. I'm in a lot of pain. I am in a lot of pain. So I am going to move my foot. Try to get a little more comfortable there.
You got to tell that foot to knock it off.
Yeah, you got to tell the foot to quit being a little biznatch.
You got to put your foot down on your foot.
So what ends up happening? He tells me, and he says, "Dude, he's over there shooting pool. He's practicing because it was a tournament, right? We were up there visiting. We were doing some stuff up there, and we visited our friend. And he said, 'Hey, let's go to a tournament. I'm playing, whatever, blah blah blah.'" And he said, "Dude," he goes, "I remember, because Eddie used to be a pool player too." And he says, "I was shooting pool with him, a few months ago, and I saw this thing on his back. I saw it, and I was like, holy crap!" So what ends up happening? He ends up going to this curandera, and this was down in Eagle Pass, which is on the border. And across from Eagle Pass is Piedras Negras. That's the name of the city. So he crosses over the border, goes in the middle of the night, and he had to wait. He got there at 11:30, and the lady said it was under the full moon. And she said that you have to come in to my, and she had a house, but there was like this adobe, like little mud hut, and she had it hot as hell in there. He said you could see like steam coming out of it. And he said that she was a Yaqui Indian, full-blooded. And I've known a couple in my life. I know one actually that's in the cryptid community. And so she was a Yaqui, and she told him, entra. So he goes inside, and they communicate in Spanish. And she began to speak in some weird language he had never heard before. Her son was there temporarily, and he goes, I'm not going to be in here very long. I can't stand the heat, dude. And he's like overweight and everything. And he tells her, he says she's speaking, Nahuatl, which was the native language of the Aztecs. And some Yaqui it's also there's a spattering of that in there too. And she's speaking this, and then he hears this prayer being spoken in Latin. What she was doing was invoking multiple parts of different religions. And he said, for whatever reason, he said that this thing, he witnessed this. She goes over to his back. She poured alcohol all over her arms, and she rubbed it on his back. And he said he heard something make a cracking, popping noise, and it sounded like like something shrieking, like, and he said it was bird-like. He's like, it's how you would imagine like a pterodactyl flying over you, how it would sound. He's like, and then I lurched forward and I looked back over my shoulder and I see this woman moving her arms, and there's this black mass with this bird-like head, and it's attacking her and moving all kinds of ways, and it keeps attacking her, and she's just like moving her arms, and slowly it's becoming like a ball. It's turning into a sphere. He goes, and eventually the sphere shrunk down to the size of a bowling ball. He goes, and then she closed her hands like that, and it was like down on the top and the bottom of it, and it was gone. And so he began to look around the room, and he sees in this one glass case a spider. It's this. He said it was the biggest black widow I'd ever seen. He goes, and I look at another one. There's a tarantula. He goes, and I'm like, these arena, these spiders. He goes, and then I look, and there's these snakes, and there's lizards, and all kinds of weird stuff. And I'm like, ugh, what in the hell? He goes, I hadn't seen those things before, And then he realized that his clarity had come back, and he could see. Now, it wasn't like he was blind before. He goes, but this thing was like, I almost got hit by, well, he said he did. He got hit by a car and T-boned, and he said, and it didn't kill me. I mean, I should have been dead because it flipped my car. He said, and then another time, he goes, I went and I jumped off of the cliff over by Mansfield Dam. He goes, and I nearly hit the rocks. He goes, and I didn't see it. He goes, and then I realized when I had almost drowned, all these different things that had happened, this thing was trying to kill me, and it was hiding danger from me. And let me tell you something. These entities, if you are not one of these practitioners that does this kind of weird stuff, right? You are in danger of that if these things attach to you, because their goal is to get you dead. And then once you're dead, they can drag you to the abyss or wherever the hell they hail from, and they can torture you and torment you and suck the energy out of you for however long, and because you're not under, God's grace. That's my opinion, and if you don't want to believe it, don't believe it. But this is what I think is going on. So he said once this thing was removed, he said that the fire got real high. There was just a little bit of smoldering fire in there, not much. And it was like these coals that looked like they were slow burning. And it was they were just orange, and there was like a flame now all of a sudden. And then she grabbed me by the hand and pulled me out of this little adobe hut. He goes, I felt like I had lost 20 pounds, and I was sweating. And I asked her what had just happened, and she said, the other is gone. Now, it's important when we talked about earlier about the Kabbalah, because the Kabbalah, what it talks about in the Kabbalah is these others. It talks about the other side of the coin. There's good and evil. There's like the good side, and then there's a flip side. You know what I mean? And so you got both sides of the coin. Now, this is actually good all the way around, but just you see my point, like good side, bad side. And he said that he goes, I remember reading in the Kabbalah about this, about the others, and about what they are. And they were these fragmented beings that had come. And I said, yeah, I know, from a compressed, So we were kind of finishing each other's sentences at that point. And he says, I knew you would understand. He goes, and so what do you think was going on? And I gave him my diagnosis of what I think was happening. And I told him, I said, did you ask her about the spiders and about the snakes and the lizards and all that? And he says, no, I didn't. And I said, he described one of the lizards to me, and I said, that is a Gila monster. It's not even native to that region, but she had it. She had animals that are sort of like on the darker side. You know what I mean? She had a rattlesnake, a sidewinder, different types of creatures that she had probably collected in her travels. And I would hazard to guess that she's probably releasing this dark energy into these creatures and then takes them out into the desert and either releases them or kills them. And I asked him this. I said, do you know why the Black Widow is commonly seen and used in these sort of ceremonies, whatever? And he asked me, or he answered me, he says, no, I don't. And so I'm going to tell you. There are no straight lines in nature. So think about this. Why would anyone create something as sinister and venomous as that particular creature? Right? You look at the hourglass symbol on its stomach. It is an hourglass. It is literally an hourglass. Do you know what an hourglass looks like? Does everybody know what an hourglass looks like? It's like two pyramids facing each other. One is upright and one is upside down, depending upon how you turn it. Now, I've actually observed one of these close up, and I see the red pyramids upside down and facing upright, and then it crawls around and whatever. And I'm looking at this thing, and I'm like, this thing was genetically created. It's black, and the only red on its body is two pyramids. Now, folks, a lot of people really think that this is a naturally occurring thing. Now, you tell me this: how on God's green earth is that a naturally occurring thing? And why would something be made black and red? Those are universal bad things. Look at Darth Maul, from Star Wars. He's black, got the red face. Look at
that
the
thing from
movie
Insidious.
Insidious, black and red.
Yeah.
Communism, Nazism, they all use black and red, black and red, black and red. That's kind of
Black
their
is
thing.
death and red is blood.
And red is blood, right? So, in my opinion, somewhere down the line could have been the Watchers, aka the Anunnaki. I don't know who or what. Something created that thing, genetically engineered that beast. Same thing with this Gila monster. It is a venomous lizard. You start to wonder, like, where these creatures come from and why are they predisposed to the dark side? Why do people use them in their magic and things like that? Right? So we and him had a whole conversation about it. And he told me something interesting. He said the last time that he had taken DMT, he had sort of a vision of a woman that was like an old crone and that she was pulling something out of his stomach. And when he looked down, it was all these spiders and there was a snake wrapped around her arm. And she was like going into like this trance and they were all biting her and her eyes rolled back in her head and she fell backwards and he woke up. That was like toward the end of his trip. And so it didn't happen exactly like that. But yeah, that's kind of what it is. Ray B has a comment here. He says, hold on one second. He says, there are straight lines in nature, not many. Crystalline structures, that's true. Crystals. Hexagonal honeycombs, they are made up of small straight sides, not many things. And it's no hill I die on. But yeah, so you're correct. But animals don't really have straight lines. And I believe that they were genetically bioengineered. I really do. I think that these things were created from dark energy. That's exactly what they are. And also, I'm a believer, And I can give you the whole creation story from about 12 different tribes of natives. But I'm not going to sit up here. That's not what this show's about tonight. They believe that these creatures, like the spider, is not from here. It's from another world. It came here and did what it did and brought evil with it, right? We know Jerry Williams has been on the show, and he talks about the Choctaw creation myth. Well, there are several people who have the Kiowa. The Kiowa had a very similar creation myth. There are several people who believe, like the people that live in the Mediterranean. There are different types of ancient cultures that revered the Kraken, and they observed this squid-like or octopus-like creature that was hell-bent on the destruction of mankind, that it would kill you and take you to the depths and you would die. The Carthaginians believed in it. And so the creature that we know of with the tentacles and all that, eight arms, just like a spider, there are a lot of scientists, a lot now, that really believe that it did not come from here. Its DNA is unlike anything else that we know of. And so you have to wonder where these creatures come from. Thank you for that donation, Sailor Nemesis. It's greatly appreciated. Donations are not expected, but we definitely appreciate it. So thank you guys for just being a listener and showing up and showing us love. We have 644 people in the chat. That's pretty good. And so I hope that the conversation we're having tonight doesn't disappoint. So one of the things that I talked to this guy about, and I told him, I said, Eddie, I said, you've been through hell and back, and he goes, I've been studying a lot. Now, the rest of our conversation was just about a few of the things that had been told to him that had happened in the house. He's able to see, he has second sight now. He can see into the other side. And he was in a parking lot at a grocery store, and a woman started to have a heart attack, and he was able to help her because he saw through her chest and saw her heart beginning to pump weird. And so he said, you're having a heart attack. And she's like, yeah, I don't feel good. And the woman's daughter was there and was like, how do you know? He goes, I can see it. And so he called 911, and sure enough, they showed up. They saved her life. The woman whose daughter came, to tell him, hey, him and his girlfriend, I thank you for this. I appreciate it, whatever. And tried to give him money. And he said, no, I don't want any money. And, she wanted to take him out to dinner and all this stuff. And he's like, no, it's cool. We're cool. He goes, I just did what anybody would do if they had my ability. And so he told me, he says, I can now see things that I could never see before. And he said that he was being plagued by these little trolls, that they were more of a nuisance and that they would be bouncing around the house. And his girlfriend, would see these creatures too, and she would hear them talking. Now, my mother and Anthony, you've heard her talk about this. She saw these duendes for years when I was a child. Yeah. Tell the audience so that we can.
Well, she said that whenever she would see these things, like she would hear them talking, and it sounded like gibberish, and they talked real fast. Now, when she told us this was before the whole thing with the minions came out, but like whenever they came out, I like that's like how I imagine like how these things would talk, like just real kind of fast, high pitched gibberish, because that's how she described it. But I mean, like she never admitted to seeing these things for years. You would see them in that house. I think you said in Rockdale, and you would see them like stabbing her foot in her sleep, and then she would wake up and she'd have this pain in her foot. But I mean, like I think that she didn't see them all the time, like you did, but she did admit to seeing them. But she must have held on to that for like 20, 30 years.
Well, yeah, and also when she was working at the water treatment, when she worked for the Tonoff Consulting Engineers, and she started working with this other company, and then those two guys had a company, and then the one guy went off, and her boss was there at her funeral.
Yeah.
She was such an integral part of that company
Oh
that
yeah.
he was there. Yeah. And so he came up and said, he goes, your mother worked for me for 2.5 decades, and so they at that company, but she worked for him at like another company for like 5 years before him and that other guy split up or whatever. And in fact, the house that she lived in before she moved to Houston actually belonged to that guy. He bought the house from him. And so, yeah, they were very close. She was a very hard worker. She was a workaholic, and she
Oh
spent
yeah.
on her deathbed. She regretted one of the last conversations I had with her before she had that last stroke was she said, don't work so much, mijo. She's like, I just spent so much time, and I didn't get to be with y'all. But when she was working at the water treatment plant out there in Westlake when they were building it, way back in the late 80s, she had, or mid 80s, I guess it was, she had a weird experience out there. There were people claiming to see this creature, and we know now what that creature was. It was a dog man. And that night we were in Houston or in Tomball, and she was telling us this, in front of me, and Christian, my other nephew. We were all sitting there, and we were just like, "Holy crap, man!" And it was, I guess it was me, you, and was Armando there? I think Armando was there too that night because
Yeah.
and he was
Yeah. I think
there.
he was.
Yeah, he was with us, and my mom just told us all these stories. And your cousin, my nephew, he was there, and so we were enthralled. And she opened up about all these things. And so after everybody was out doing whatever and talking in the living room, I was in the dining room with her, and I told her, I said, Mother, why did you not ever tell me all of these things? Like, you told me a lot of stuff tonight I never knew. And she's like, I can feel that my time is not, I don't have a lot of time left. And I only regret that we didn't record with her so that we
Yeah.
could have recorded with her and for posterity. And so when she got ill, it happened real fast. Like, she was fine. And then all of a sudden she just went, she got sick, and then she went downhill real quick. And then she was in the hospital for like 3-4 weeks, whatever, not quite a month. And then she had that final stroke. And so that was it. And so when, I had to go, and we had to watch her pass, at the hospice, which was very hard. So she passed away in the Woodlands in Houston, but she had seen these creatures. And of course she moving my foot, folks. Oh boy. So she had seen these things, and when she passed away, the first time, because she died 3 different times, and the last time, of course, was when she passed away. That was it. But she had died 2 other times and was revived. The first time, it was very horrific. Now, when you go back and you look at these people who have had these near death experiences, sometimes they mirror the experiences that people have from DMT. And so, what is he saying? Yeah. So I was just reading Smurfy's comment there. But whenever you go back and you talk to these people, some of these people, they describe using DMT like they're dying. And it's almost like they have like a near-death experience. But I'm glad to say that Eddie is a devout Christian, and he has been on the path, the spiritual path. And the woman that he had gone to get some help from or whatever, she's one of those people that walks between the worlds. She walks between 2 worlds. He said he stayed in contact with her because he had to go back to her one other time, and they met down at the mission in San Juan. And she takes a pilgrimage there once a year, just like we did. I know you went with us when you were a little kid. That was the last time I ever went, because I was like, look, I'm doing this to please Jehovah. And she's like, mijo, You need to go to San Juan and you need to get the holy water like this, and you need to put it on you, and you need to get the rosary, and you need to pray and go to the priest and tell him all the bad things you did. And I'm like, yeah, I don't do bad things. She goes, "Nay, mentiras. You do a lot of bad things. Right now, you just did one. You lied."
Yeah, Jehovah saw right through everyone's bullcrap,
She sure did, and she
and
would
everyone thought
call
that
it.
she was a fool.
Yeah, everybody thought that she was like, whatever.
Yeah, like simple-minded, but then
Yeah,
like if she had something to say, she could just pick you apart and then walk off, and you're like, God dang. You just like
it's crazy.
tore this person down and then just walked off like it was nothing.
Mm-hmm. Like that time we were at the restaurant, and that guy was like rude to Scorpion, and she says, "Don't worry about him. His wife is a drunk."
Yeah. Yeah,
And
because you know all the local gossip.
yeah, she did. She kept her ear or whatever, and she says, she would tell people whenever they would cast the stones, she would always be like, "Oh, you don't want to talk about me. You got your own problems. You run around on your wife, whatever."
Yeah.
And she wouldn't bring it up unless somebody said something about one of us or somebody she cared about.
Yeah.
So thank goodness she didn't have to deal with Facebook, because she would be going crazy with all these people. She'd probably be fighting with them. Thea Rosa too. She would have been another one that would have been
Yeah.
fighting. But when you stop and you look at these stories and you see the connection there, a lot of people see the same thing. They see these machine elves. They see these, Edgar Casey talked about them. Who or what they are, I can only speculate. But if you look at the world through the lens of science, now I know I've said this before and I stand by it. Science is incomplete. Science is not something that we can hold on to and say, "Oh, we have the science," whatever. My hope in this field, and I call it this field, and what it is the cryptid, paranormal, ghosts, whatever, alien, whatever you want to call it, alternate realities, every Fortean subject you can think of, the field of mysteries, right? That's what we're here talking about. I had somebody the other day get real snarky with me, and they said, "Why don't you pick a lane and stay in it?" And I said, I'm more of one of those people that just likes to change lanes at will and just kind of like be all over the place. So I'll pick a lane and then I'll pick another lane and another lane. How about that? And I didn't take the bait, and I didn't argue and fight with the person. And people get really upset with me from these different fields because, and I will say this, and people say that I'm arrogant. No, it's not arrogance. It's actually knowing more about this subject than they do, and they get aggravated. They get angry. And this isn't, I'm not going to mention names or talk about any particular person, and this isn't aimed at any one particular person. I'm just talking about people in general. They get very upset because they're like, "Well, what are you doing? Are you into cryptids? Are you into ghosts? Are you into, alien abduction?" I tell them all of it. Because it's all connected. If you're a person like the guy we were talking about, Eddie, he is now able to see things that other people can't see. And his girlfriend had a dogman encounter. Now, albeit rather brief, she was near the redwood forest up in Northern California, and she went hiking, and she was with her ex-boyfriend. And of course, Eddie doesn't like him much. He was abusive to her, not a nice guy. And he says, "It's too bad the dogman didn't eat him." But they saw this thing dragging something like, about 25, 30 yards up ahead. And as they got further up, they saw this wolf-like creature, and this big back was kind of moving around, going up and down. And they heard this crunching noise, like, and then he said, man, it was loud. You could hear the bones of this deer just being chewed up. This thing was just eating. He goes, and when I got up, I peeked over and I saw this wolf-like creature. The legs were bent backwards but it was hunched over like a man. He goes, and there was like arms. And he's like, "Oh my gosh," And so this is what she said. She's telling him this. And she says, "I see it. And it's like hunched over like a man, like it's, doing what it's doing." And she's like, "I back up She turns around. Her freaking boyfriend, the badass that's always doing mean things to her, he's gone. Like he took off running. She says, and this thing just kind of goes like, turns and looks. And she's like, it gets up, doesn't turn its head completely. It was like it couldn't turn its head without moving its body. And it's like lifting its head. She's like, and then it turned. And when it turned around, doing like a 180, it saw her. And she was like, I'm sitting there looking at this thing. She's like, and I was frozen with fear. And this thing looked right at me. She's like, and I could see the blood all over its humongous head. She's like, and then it just started growling like, something protecting its kill. And so she began to run, and she just took off running, which is not probably the best response, because that could trigger a predatorial response from one of these beasts. Whether they're fully physical or metaphysical doesn't matter. At that point, he is eating flesh. And so luckily for her, I think he just was interested in doing what it was doing, which wasn't too far off the hiking trail that they were on, which was just a glorified deer path. And so she ran and got away from it. And, she got back to the vehicle. She's like, I get back to the 4Runner, and I get that's the vehicle she had. She's like, and her boyfriend was in the freaking vehicle. And she's like banging on the glass. He didn't even want to open the door for her. He was trying to pull out and leave her. And so she had to like kick the vehicle or whatever and get him to stop and get his senses. And then they took off, but she saw this thing like eating a deer, And so whenever he mentioned that to me, he goes, I know that, D, that's our mutual friend, that works out in the oil field. He said that he told me that you took stories about werewolves and stuff like that. He goes, my girlfriend saw one with her ex. Well, there's another weird thing that happened to him. He went out, he was working out in the oil field, which is very dangerous. My friend Tyler had one of his testicles blown off, in an accident. Tyler. He's one of my friends from the old days. And he was working in Colorado. Yeah. And he had his testicle he lost it in an accident at the oil fields up there. And so it's crazy, like how close he came to dying. And it cut into his leg too. He nearly died. And he's a big dude, man, and so, he's tough, and he made it through, but dang, man, I mean, it nearly killed him. When this guy went to work out in the oil fields for my friend D, D was aggravated because a week and a half into his job, he said he was doing good. He was working hard. He just says, I can't work here anymore. I have to leave. Something's going to happen. A week later, one of the workers was hit by a bolt, like a little nut, whatever, and it went into his brain and killed him. It shot off from the pressure of one of these drills, and one of the bolts flew off and did something, and it killed the guy. Now, I asked Eddie about that. I said, did you have a premonition? He goes, no. He's like, I just felt like something was going to happen. And he said, and where that guy died, he goes, that would have been my job. He goes, so I would be dead. So that is, and he said that this kind of stuff is what's happening now. It's like he has a heightened sense of awareness. So he meets this, my foot. He meets this lady at the church there in San Juan, and she looks totally different. She doesn't look all dirty and disheveled or whatever, because she had ash and everything on her body and her face and everything when she was doing what she did. So he had a talk with her, and he asked her what it was that she did and how she did what she did. And she told him. She says, I couldn't have told you this before when you asked me. She's like, but now we're in the house of God, and I can tell you. She's like, when I was born, and it wasn't unlike what happened to Abe Sias. She was given to a bruja, and this bruja would do things. Curandera, bruja is in between, whatever. And it would pull demonic entities out of people. And sometimes she's like, they would go into me as a child, and then they would take me out to the river, dunk me in the river, and say some prayers, and these things would leave through the water. And she literally would defecate, and it was a weird thing. So she tells him that she had been used as like a conduit for these things, whatever. And so she had that ability. And he did say he saw her eyes roll back, whatever. And he said that whenever she was talking to him, she told him, she says, sometimes they'll come out in the form of like a snake or a spider. She's like, and those are what you saw in those vessels there. She's like, those have to be disposed of in a particular way. Because if she takes them out into the middle of the desert and smashes that spider, that demon that's in that spider, that's what it is a demon, it will literally come up into her and try to take over her body, and then she'll have to fight it and cleanse it and do all this stuff. So when she was there at the church, that was literally what she was doing, because she had to get rid of one of these demons who was inside of one of these animals. So she was there with saying the rosary and doing the prayer of the 12 truths. And that is something that she did regularly. And so she had to cleanse herself. But she told him, she says, you'll be okay, you know. And she got up and she walked out, and there was a guy waiting there, which was her son and a young lady. And she got in the back seat and she drove off. Well, here's what's interesting. She literally, he did not know this at all. The priest comes up to him and begins to talk to him and tells him, she's like, it's hard to believe that woman's blind. And he's like, what? And he's like, yeah. She's been blind since birth. She can't see. He's like, she can move around and walk just like a person that has vision. Well, I'll explain that to you. When he told me this, it didn't shock me, because some people actually see with the eye. I'm not talking about the ojo or the ojo dotado, the gift. What I'm talking about is they see through their eye, the third eye, and they can literally close their eyes and navigate through your whole house. I've been around people like this. One person. And this was a Buddhist shaman, and was legally blind, but could do and just function like anybody else, and lived and worked at a temple. And when I was at this temple, I met this person, and this person was mopping the floor. And they were mopping like a person that had the vision, and like they could see. And when they looked up at me, I could see the eyes were grayed out. And I thought, oh, this person's blind. And that person just smiled at me, big smile. And I bowed my head and I kept going. And it is a weird thing, but it's not, like out of the realm of, like, it's not like it's crazy. You're like, oh, that's crazy. What are they doing? Echo, sounds like a bat. No. So anyways, that's that story, and that's what happened to him. I hope you enjoyed that, and we have some time. If anybody wants to talk about something, you want to give a subject, go ahead, be my guest. Ask questions. You want to take questions from the audience, Anthony? We can answer the questions. I'm going to be off camera for just a second, but I'm still here listening.
Audacious Amber asks, have you heard any more about the Church of Shay, which I think she means the Temple of Shay, which goes back to the stories about the others from that vampire cult, like the Temple of Shay in Gara, I think.
Quantum Potential has a question too, and I'm going to tell him this. That's Bounty Hunters. Quantum says, Josh, can you talk about paranormal quantum physics? Yes, I can. And actually, I'm in the process with my wife of writing a book. Hopefully, it'll be something that we can release at some point, pondering the paranormal and just kind of going over what we think it is. It's going to go with another book that we call Breaking the Matrix. We don't know if we're going to name them that or not, but that's kind of along the lines of what it is. I got to be real careful because I am being targeted, and I have a lot of people who are gunning for me. Not just these morons that are constantly spouting off, saying ridiculous crap, accusing us of everything under the sun, but higher up people that are doing bad things. Okay. So I have to be real careful. And if I'm going to make that decision to cross the Rubicon on that, then there's no going back. Right now, I'm just a podcaster with, we just crossed over the other day to 37,000 people. But I already having a target on my back, it could get worse. And I have been being threatened. I've been being threatened ever since I did the Texas Wolfman episode. The threats started then, and they've just kind of continued. And
Oh yeah, I remember when that started. We started getting those emails from some guy saying that you need to be careful and stop talking about what you're talking about.
Yeah, it was really, really ridiculous.
Yeah, because like he referred to the dogmen and werewolves as us or something like that.
Yeah, and it was like, we don't mess with you. Why are you messing with us? And I was like, I'm not messing with you. I am just doing a show. And they were like, well, you need to stop. And there were a couple different emails over the last, I say a couple dozen over the last couple years that have gotten more and more dark. People saying ridiculous things and basically threatening my life. And so, like I said, I don't live my life in fear and be like, oh, whatever. I know that the people that have been talking a lot lately, they're not going to come up and shoot me straight up. They're going to back shoot me. They're those kind of people. They're not the kind that are just going to face you head on. So, if I get back shot, well, it's what happens. That's a good comment, Sherry. These spiders and snakes must be brought in for questioning and held accountable for their actions if found guilty. I think that's what happens when they get bashed against the rocks.
Just put them on trial like the Quintessons. Whether they're guilty or innocent, they just get the same punishment.
The same punishment, innocent, and then they just throw them in with the Shockticons.
Yeah,
they don't care. So, Audacious Amber had a question, and I believe you have a podcast, don't you, Amber? I believe somebody told me that you have a show or something. Amber says no. Okay, I thought you did. I thought you had a show. Okay, so you're not that important. Cool. I'm just messing with you. So her question was, have we heard anything more about the Temple of Shay? Yes, we have. And I've talked to Eve, and I'm getting ready to do a show about what her role was and what she did. She was kind of like it's going to sound funny, but kind of like the human resources person there. Whenever there was a serious problem between two warlocks or witches, vampires, werewolves, whatever the hell you want to call these people, she would have to kind of mediate and pass judgment. And that made her lock horns with a lot of unsavory beings who got her into some situations that she had. And there's some pretty colorful stories that go along with what went on with her. Now, did we ever tell the story of the guy that had the dark angel, the fallen angel that was sending vibrational messages to him, and he walked across Australia to go into the hole in the earth?
I don't remember that one being recounted.
Does anybody remember that? I can't remember if we talked about that guy or not. He's Filipino and Arabic. It's a very weird mix, but Carla Washington has a question here. Do you have any more immortal or vampire stories? Sure we do. Are you still having the conference next year, Wolf? Probably not. In fact, because of the threats from these other crazy people, probably we won't be having another conference at all, because it's just going to be it wouldn't be smart on my part to have that, to just be sitting there as bait, like just sitting.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, people like Larry and the other people have made that probable of non-probability. Getting threatened repeatedly, by maniacs kind of changes things for you. Josh, do you think dimensions are being opened via CERN AI, much like Ouija boards open them up? Yes, I do. I absolutely do. Yes, I believe that stratagem. I do wholeheartedly agree with that comment. Yeah, I do believe CERN is, I think they're changing things and altering things. I've been saying that forever. Of course, now there's all these people that are going just copying my work and repeating what I've been saying for 5 years now. And now everybody's like, yeah, we figured this out. No, you didn't. You just heard me say it and now you're repeating it. But such is life, right? What is it? When someone copies you, what is it? The sincerest form of flattery is
imitation.
imitation. They imitate you. Yeah. People are using it in their books too, man. I was just like, somebody sent me a clip the other day of somebody's book, and I'm like, it would be one thing if they would actually at least give me the credit. And kudos to Josh Finocchio. Um, you know, he actually, referenced my work and he actually gave me credit for it, which is cool. I mean, like guys like him and Gaetano and Palacios, they actually do say, hey, this is Josh Turner or whatever. But there are other people, some people, they'll just sit there and plagiarize, verbally plagiarize your work and just say, and they'll pass it off as their own thoughts. And these people haven't had what do you call it, a thought ever. They've never had an original thought in their life. I mean, you're sitting there going like, yeah, right. Here's one. BL says, can you talk about Bimini and pyramid civilizations? I can. Bimini, if anybody knows anything about the Bermuda Triangle, it is one of the locations, the Bimini Road near the Caribbean. People claim that they found a road that is underwater. Now, they did. There actually is a road. You can see it. Like I said, there's no straight lines. Everything is vibrations and wave. But there is a road, a clearly paved road that's in these big blocks, and it's called the Bimini Road. You can look it up, and it is underwater. So you could just go and look it up. I don't know if that's how you spell it, Bimini. Maybe Anthony, you could. It's either Bemini.
No, it's BIM, Bimini.
It's BIM, yeah.
Yeah.
Or it's BIM, whatever. But the Bimini Road, it's a very interesting subject. And yes, I could talk about that. Edgar Casey had a lot of interesting things to say about Atlantis. Now, Atlantis, there are, I'm going to say this. We really need to do a show about that too, or at least talk about it in some form or another. There are multiple Atlantises, folks. Graham Hancock has done some work on, and I know a lot of people have attacked him. Of course, anybody who says anything that doesn't go along with the norm, they're like, and Graham's a good dude, but he has talked about the different ancient civilizations that are now lost, right? If you look at Australia, right, at one point, Australia was actually connected by a piece of land that's no longer there. It was connected to Asia. Now it's just a series of islands. But I remember it being further down on the map. And I remember there being a little piece of land to the left of it if you looked at it on the globe. And now you just have New Zealand over here and Tasmania, and then there's nothing over there to the left. And people have made a lot out of the kids spinning the globe on the show or the movie that was filmed here, Dazed and Confused. The kid's spinning the globe. He's the quarterback of the football team or whatever, and he's stopped. He's spinning it, whatever. And you stop it, you see Australia has this piece of land right there next to it. Some people believe that the Mandela effect is just one big psyop. Some people believe that it is something that's happening that's been pushed upon us, like by CERN or some other outside force. We're not exactly sure. Now, if math and science are your thing, I'm really kicking around the idea of an advanced class. My dear friend Ken Gerhard is now teaching classes about cryptids, and he made a kind of a joke, and he says, "You should be teaching too," blah blah blah. And so, but he charges people to take the class. He doesn't charge a lot, but it is an interesting concept. And so I thought about maybe using my Rumble channel to make classes, because this is something that I thought the other day. Because with your Rumble account, you can have multiple channels. So I've thought about channels about economics. Like I said, just different basic things like being an adult, doing smaller videos. I am going to start coming on at random times and just telling some 20, 30-minute, 40-minute stories, and just throwing them on YouTube and Rumble. So make sure you like and subscribe, and you get the dings, the notifications. Hit that notification so you'll see it. And if you're really busy and you're on a date with if you're a girl, and you're out there and this is a really good looking guy, to just politely tell that he's talking about, and I also do this, and I'm an account manager. Just say, hey, shut the F up, all right? Another really hot guy that I'm following is going to be doing a show. So shut up.
Be quiet while the men are speaking.
And then just eat your salad, your delicious salad, and watch me on the show. Then when you're done, don't look up and listen to this guy until you're done, until I'm done doing what I got to do. And then go, okay, sorry about that. That took 40 minutes. What were you saying about yourself again? If he's still there. If he's not, then it wasn't meant to be. So that's what I suggest to all the women. And if you're a guy, it's a totally different scenario. If you're a guy and you're on a date with a girl, you're not listening to her anyway. Don't lie and say that you are, okay? You chauvinist turds. Don't try to lie to me and say that you give a crap. You're on a date with her because she's hot. And when she's talking, it sounds like, and you're going, oh, yes, me too. I'm totally into cross stitch. And just, you're being fake and whatever. So when you get that notification, just go, excuse me, honey. Pull the phone out and then be like, oh, Josh Turner's on. I need to go use the restroom. I don't poop, so I'm just going to take a really long number one, and I will return. You sweet, beautiful angel. And then just go there and sit on the toilet and watch me. Okay? That's my advice. And there are only two genders, so whatever. If you're one of those people that's confused, you don't watch my show anyway. So yeah, that's what you got to do. So now you know. Now you know. And as they say, knowing is half the battle. Two Shadows. What's up, my man? Thank you for that donation. We appreciate it. What is quantum potential? Saying a lot of interesting things today. It says Bermuda sits on top of the world's largest mountain volcano. If you ever get a chance, visit the island and go to Horseshoe Bay at 3 a.m. to look at the moonrise. Wow, interesting. What does this say here? In a realm, Earth proponent doesn't mean I think space is fake. What we see is up there. What the wandering stars are, that's a different question. I think the Earth is the basement of the universe. I saw you kind of say that before. I can say a lot of things about that. I don't know if I should, because then we might get into some things. But like I said, I am. First, I'm going to move my foot. Oh. God. Interesting timing. I decided to come back and this happens to my foot. Yeah. It's not going to stop me. So whatever. Once I decide to do something, I'm going to do it. Andres Carrizales, this kid says, could Atlantis use crystals that open up portals that are misfiring, causing the phenomena happening? Atlantis, like I said, there are multiple Atlantises. There are many, many of these civilizations. What I need to do is maybe put them in the book and talk a little bit about each one of these and where they were at on the map. Geography is another one of my I love geography. And I like math. I'm a big numbers guy. I'm almost like what do you call it with numbers? OCD. And so I'm a big numbers guy. And I'm not like 730 Jeopardy, 730 Jeopardy, but I'm and I can do math in my head pretty quick. And sometimes Anthony, who's also very intelligent, will make a mistake mathematically, and I'll tell him you made a mistake, and he disagrees, and then 90% of the time I'm right.
Yeah.
But Marty, my business partner, he's big in math too, that guy. But then when he gets it wrong, at least I admit it, right? He doesn't even admit it. He'll say, "Oh, okay, yeah. I'll put that in your account," but I'm still right, and I'm just giving you free money, which he does not do. Don't let him lie to you. And then he'll help you. He's a good dude, but he'll be like, "I'm gonna go ahead and just give it to you," like he's doing you a favor.
Yeah.
And it's like, you owe this. It's like, what are you talking about? Do me a favor. That's what you're supposed to do, man. Like, come on, man. Amber says, I have silenced people when you're on. Well, credit to you then. Good on you. Yeah. Let's see what we got here. Eat your salad, your lips. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Just like do what I did one time during a horrible date. I just said, you know what? I got to use the restroom, and then I snuck out. I just left. She didn't even get around to noticing for like 20 minutes, and then she called. I'm like, I'm at home. I don't know what you're doing. It was horrible. It was horrible. I mean, she was just on the phone the whole time. I mean, well, see ya. Well, that's a good thing to wake up to. Carolyn CJ. Yeah, Cowboy. Gout sucks. And like I said, I've been having it for the last few, years. Never had it before. On that alien foot could potentially bring a little castor oil. That's a good point. Yeah, that's a damn good point. That could be. Astronaut Violet says of all the supernatural creatures and fantasies are technically creatures from the under Earth, inner Earth, yeah. Yes, Paul, I am, but I took a hiatus from everything. Just had to stop anything and everything and just live my life. My business partner is doing better, Lolo. Thanks for asking. He's been healing up and doing good. That's an interesting theory, Josh. Josh Casto says, my dad told me the stars are fake. They're the air holes in the top of our enclosure. I mean, could be. I mean, it could be. We don't know. I mean, that could be what's going on. We could be living in a terrarium, like I've said before.
I mean, I've also had this thought before that, how supposedly the nearest star is like I think it's like 7 light years away. But I always thought, like, how do we, like, we're told this, and we just kind of accept it as fact, but we don't really know like how that's been proven or whether or not it's been proven. I mean, like, I don't think that the stars are fake, but what if things out there aren't nearly as far away as we're told they are?
Exactly.
Because, I mean, like 99.9% of us are just lay people, so there's a small group of people like NASA scientists who just they have a say, and they say things like this. The sun is this size, and it's this, and the far away, and the circumference is this, and the whole time I'm just going like, okay, but how do I know that for sure? I mean, you're telling me this, but I don't know what goes into proving and quantifying these things, and nobody really does, except for the small percentage of people.
Yeah. Well, it's like the whole thing with the speeches to get us into World War I and World War II. They were like, the Japanese are saying this, and the Germans are saying that, and the Italians are saying this. That's because less than 4% of the population understood Japanese. 8% of the population spoke German. And like I think it was like 16% understood Italian. So it was like they could say what they wanted that they were saying, and they could put it on the TV and translate it to anything they wanted. You know,
Hmm.
Mussolini said he was chopping up babies, and they're just like, "Oh my gosh, time to go to war." Well, it's a good
Yeah.
thing we're
Or like
whatever.
Saddam was throwing babies out of incubators.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and most people don't speak those other languages. That's why it helps to be linguistically inclined too. Like I don't expect other people to speak several languages or understand them. Those are it helps to be able to understand and speak other languages and learn about other cultures. Anthony's, this. You've been with me many times, or we've been out and about, and I'll meet someone and I will tell you exactly where they're from,
Hmm.
what race they are, what religion they are, what their culture is, and they're just in shock. And I've done this many, many times, and then I can always speak at least a greeting or two of their native language. And so one time when I was with Nellie, and she was just in shock, there was a guy who was Zulu, and I actually spoke a greeting to him, and then the dude just wanted to hang out the whole night. But yeah, I mean, it helps to. I mean, I'm not telling you I don't speak Zulu fluently. No, believe me, I just know a couple of words and some greetings, and I understand some Arabic and Hebrew, and I can say greetings and things like that, and ask for certain things. Um, I know a little bit of Chinese. Pretty good with German. I used to speak quite a bit of German and Italian, but I don't practice speaking it much anymore. And I do some French, but my French is not what it used to be. But yeah, it helps to understand different languages and to be able to communicate. I'm pretty good with languages, and I'm pretty good with different types of subjects. And so uh, it is something that I thought to myself while we were on hiatus, and I just kept. Well, I was planning on not really coming back, and we were driving, and Anthony just you were happy to be away. We were, especially when things were just ridiculous, and we were like, "Hey, it's over." And it was Tony that was with us, and he said, it's a shame that these people, just won't leave us alone and just let us live our lives. He's like, you have so much to say and so much to offer, and you could teach these people in the world a lot. And it's a shame, And so he was the first one to say that. It was like 2 days after we had quit, but he goes, "I'm burned out. I'm tired. It's not fun anymore." Anthony, you said the same thing. So did I. So did Nellie.
Yep.
So did everybody. And but then gradually, uh, over 30 different people from this field that are prominent in this field reached out to me. And they called me or they texted me, and, "Are you okay? How's everything? Whatever." And I really appreciate that. And eventually I got around to getting back with these people, and I talked to them, and they all said the same thing. They said that there's nothing like what you do. And these are people that told us this, and I'm not tooting my own horn. And Anthony, this is true. And they all kind of tried to nudge me, "Hey, just leave the door open. Don't close it completely. Don't take
Yeah.
your channel down," because we kicked around just taking the channel down completely and moving on. And we actually kind of voted on it. And I was the only one that said, "Take it down. I don't care." And you remember that. I
Hmm.
literally said, "Take the channel down. I don't give a crap what you do. Take it down, burn it, throw it all away." And that was a stupid thing to do. And I will say that is not correct. That was just me not happy with the people that were attacking us and the things that were going on. But thank goodness cooler heads prevailed. And Nellie was like, she's like, honey, is that really what you want? Why don't you sleep on it? And the next day I was like, yeah, you're right. I'm not going to take it down, leave it up. And Keem, who needed the work, and he's like, I really want to make these shorts. I want to, do this. I want to make this happen. And so I said, okay, we're gonna let him at least do what he's got to do. And so yeah, that is kind of how it went down. But I was to the point where I was like, I don't give a crap. I don't need it. I was just like, I don't need this headache. But there is a lot of knowledge there that needs to be relayed. So Jackie Hall has a question before I get into another one. Josh, what do you think about the stories in Voss about the Giants? There is a lot of information about the Giants. It depends on what you want to know. There's even a book that was found, the Book of Giants. It was literally written thousands of years ago. And so a lot of people believe that Mary Magdalene, and that's another thing we can get into at some point. I wish, like, I'm in this middle of this limbo state here, and I'm kind of in an empty study. But if I was already my permanent home, which should happen at the end of this month, then I could give you a little more information. I could sit back and go through it all and come up with a show, and we could talk about it. The Gospel of Mary, which is a Gnostic gospel, and it's one of the most persecuted of the Gospels, along with the Gospel of Judas. Yes, there is a Gospel of Judas, and it tells the tale from his perspective. Are these legit? Are any of the books of the Bible? I mean, we really don't know. The Council of Nicaea, this is the Bible, the Holy Bible right here. So the Bible, and it's in very, very small print. It is so tiny in this. But if you were to take this Bible, I mean, it's not a very big book. I mean, it's really, the Bible before the Council of Nicaea was 20 times the size. There was this humongous, big, and there were different parts, And when you wanted to learn something from the Bible, you went to the church and they would read it to you or tell you or whatever. And very few people even had the ability to read. And one of the things that the powers that be wanted to do was to keep us from being able to read. And they had a reason for that. It's called control. They wanted power. And so the Council of Nicaea, the Catholic Church, under the guise of, keeping people from being confused, the red pope, the black pope, the gray pope, and the white pope all got together. I got to move myself in this chair, and it is going to be not pretty. So, bear with me for a minute, or you're going to hurt my right knee because I'm putting too much pressure on it. These are the powers, right? There's 4 popes. And I know this is going to sound crazy, but it is the truth. And when people sit there and they tell you, well, there's only one pope, blah, 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 they believe this. They really believe this. These are the same people that are convinced that we went to the moon the first time that actually happened, and they called on a landline. Dude, please, pull your head out of your rear end. I'm not telling you to believe in a bunch of crazy conspiracies, but life is an open book test. The information to all of these subjects is there. You just have to find it. And if you can't do it through a particular web browser, well, then find another one. Because you can find the information, even though they try to hide it, you can go from one point to another point to another point, and you can find that information. Folks, time is running out. Time is running short. And our lives here are like the blink of an eye. And so if you want this information and you want to learn and you want to know, then you have to educate yourself, right? And here I feel guilty now, being gone for 5 weeks or whatever it was, because you've lost out on 5 or 6 weeks, whatever it was, of learning. Because the longer I was away, the more comfortable I was being away. And then I just kept feeling this overwhelming guilt because I felt like this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be relaying people's encounters and teaching people, my foot again, teaching people about the nature of the real nature of the reality that we are all sharing, right? And you got to understand something, dude. There are elitist powers that have been working around the clock for centuries to try to keep you ignorant and destroy your ability to not only absorb the knowledge, but to retain it. Retaining knowledge is very important. People tell me your mind is like a trap. You're able to repeat things and keep knowledge, that is something that's very important. Do not let these people take that from you. And this last, when people had the if you want to call it the virus, whatever, a lot of people reported brain fog as one of the symptoms, and it affects me too. I've lost trains of thought and things like that. Even with that, I'd say it probably took 15 to 20% of my mental capacity away from me, and kind of messed my mind up a little bit as far as remembering. But even then, 20% down is still more than they probably would like for me to have. That's fine. They can have that. I have it to spare. And oh, well, there you go. You're being arrogant. No, I'm being honest. I'm being very honest. Some people are here for a reason, and others they're not. There's NPCs out there. And if you're watching this show, you're watching it for one of two reasons. You like the show, you like the information, you like me, or you hate my guts and you're looking for clips so that you can use against me. Either way, I applaud you. Thank you for the views. So what you have is a set of people who have been working around the clock hardcore to stop you. And you have these NPC morons. And once again, this isn't aimed at any one particular person, because there's a whole bunch of these idiots. And what they do is they want to tell you that the only knowledge you should have is this much right here. That's it. That's the Bible, the whole Bible. God will not be mocked by learning from other books. Well, dum-dums, those are the Bible. Those other books were all part of the Bible until the Catholic Church, the four popes, took the Bible apart, in particular the Red Pope, who people don't really understand who or what that is. The Black Pope, which represents obviously the dark elements of the papacy, and then the Gray Pope. They don't understand what these people are, who they are, or what they are. All you have is the figurehead of the White Pope, who represents the purity and the goodness and whatever. But then you get this Pope that comes out and says the most craziest, outlandish stuff ever. And I'll tell you why, because he's also the Black Pope. Yeah, because at some point they just decided that the Black Pope would be the White Pope, and that's it. And so you have somebody who is slowly flittering out information that is not doing what is right. And if you're Catholic, there's no attack on you. I'm not attacking you. It's not your fault that these people have been bought and sold. If you're Baptist, I'm not attacking you. It's not your fault that the people that you follow have been bought and sold, but you need to understand something. They have. The evangelicals have been deceived, and so have the Catholics. And if you believe that the only knowledge that you should have is from this small book, I feel really sorry for you, because there is a whole universe of knowledge out there that you need to be learning from.
Yeah, and Christ said, "My people die for lack of knowledge."
That's right. And so, thank you for saying that, Madeline. She says taking the channel down would have been a devastating blow to the paranormal community. Anthony said it would be like the burning of the Library of Alexandria.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that. I don't think it would be that devastating, but I get what you were saying. But yeah, we were just sick and tired of the bull crap. But eventually, it's all going to come out at some point if they don't kill me, or they're doing witchcraft against me. I'm saying this with all sincerity. I'm not joking. It's no, you wake up and you can't walk. I mean, my diet's pretty clean at this point. I didn't do anything that would facilitate me not being able to walk. I don't intake a lot of sugar. Anthony and me both, Nellie, we all kind of eat the same thing. And we don't eat a lot of junk or a lot of processed food.
No.
So there's really no reason for me to be having this flare up like it is.
When it came on like way too fast too.
Mm-hmm.
Just strange. There was no like build up to it. Not really. Just excruciating pain.
Yeah, just pain. Yeah, so it just doesn't make any sense. Ah, yes. So here we are. We are in a simulation. Anything unexplained is an error in the code. I've thought that too. Since no one is monitoring the program anymore to do bug fixes at this point, any changes are done strictly for science. That's also because that they're communicating with parallel universes, and that's all part of it. Quantum Potential with another good one. He says giants. Anyone familiar with Mud Fossil University here on YouTube? Amazing stuff on that channel. Yes, I actually do watch his. Well, I've seen it twice, but one of the episodes was very interesting. The guy actually points out that some of the cave entrances look like female parts. It sounds goofy and weird unless you go and you watch it and you really let him show you exactly what he's talking about. These look like fossilized remains of giants. I'm not joking. And you'll see what he's talking about. Check it out. It's actually a good channel. Yep, the council had an agenda. That's for damn sure. Yep, Plymouth said the Mud Fossil University is. Yeah. And Two Shadows, have you read it? That's interesting. That's an interesting book, dude. Judas is it's interesting. It's very interesting. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say I believe every single thing that comes across my desk and every single thing that I've ever read, that it's all correct, it's all true, because you don't know. You really don't know. And you can't say with all certainty that it's all factual. But you can get a pretty good idea if you're on the right path. You can kind of glean information and figure out, that makes sense. Just use common sense. It's something that seems to be lacking nowadays. It used to be just, the older generations, it was like they had common sense and they understood it. But it seems like people nowadays are like, common sense, what's that? Atlanta says, has anyone seen a crawler attack a person or animal? Yes. There have been multiple accounts of that. Interesting. V. I'm not laughing to make fun. V says, there were not color-coded popes in the early church. There were 5 patriarchate, whatever, of which the Patriarch of Rome was first among equals, but not greater than the others. What you're talking about is the council. What I'm talking about is what they don't show you and what they don't tell you. One pope does not rule the Vatican in the entire world. There are 4, okay? And they weren't color-coded. It was never out in the open. This is not something, okay. For example, people like to use the term the Illuminati. Do you know that word is actually an Italian word? It's the Illuminati, the illuminated ones. But it actually comes from Persia. It was a lot of the names, too, of Persians, they end with vowels, just like the Italians' names end with vowels because of the Romans. There were a lot of Zoroastrians that influenced the early church. And the early church borrowed very heavily from the monotheistic teachings of Zoroastrianism. And it came from the Jewish foundation of the church, and they got their monotheistic beliefs from the Zoroastrians. And I don't care what anybody tells you; they can say that that's not true. Bullcrap. Zoroastrian was the first that we know of, the first monotheistic religion, unless you say Hinduism. But a lot of people will argue and say, well, Hinduism has like all these different gods. But no, they are all just aspects of one guy, Brahman. Every one of these other gods is just Brahma's, it's another aspect of him. So there really aren't multiple gods. It's just a part of him. And we are all a part of the one God. And so what you're looking at and what V is talking about is like, yes, on the surface, you're correct. They weren't color coded. And yeah, but that's not correct. In reality, they were, and there are different types of popes, and they do different things. The red pope, the job of the red pope is to keep us from that truth, to keep us on the level of the six families that control everything. The reason that they are called the Illuminati and it came out of Italy is because of the papacy, the Vatican, and the six families are in control of that, and they became the Council of the Illuminati. But they are not actually Italian, right? They're Khazars. And so it gets really convoluted and complex if you get down into which groups are what. The Essenes, which were the Persian subset, and the mutual agreement between Persia and Rome, which took place in 430. I believe it was in 436. I think the whole point of it was to stop the progressive power of the Ottomans. The Ottomans were always eager to fight against the Pope, to fight against Catholicism, because, and for years, all the way up into the 800s, the Habsburgs, they had been fighting Islam and stymieing their efforts to conquer and take over Europe. And so it goes to this point in time where Persia attacked Turkey, and it was based on the mutual exchange of knowledge. Now, I know this sounds crazy, but Persia had a lot of the answers. And this is where it gets really interesting. Persia was the inheritor of the kingdom of Babylon. Does anybody here, I know that if you've watched the show enough, you probably know. Now, we're going to get into some interesting stuff here for a little bit. Does anybody know who the Babylonians inherited? What kingdom they inherited? Who were they? Yes, Quantum, I'm suffering from gout in my foot. I believe that's what this is. The pain yesterday was absolutely excruciating. It's still hurting, but I took some Curamed, which is a natural anti-inflammatory, and it really does work. It's got high amounts of curcumin and some other things. But does anybody here, let me see if I can get all the way down to the bottom here. I'm way behind in the chat.
The first person who spoke up was Under Fire 987 says Sumerians. Audacious Amber says Hittites. M from M says Assyrian.
Yeah. And guess what? The cool thing about all those answers is you're all correct. The Hittites, actually, the Assyrians, so it was the Hittites, the Assyrians, the Sumerians, but they all originally came from the Sumerians, and the Babylonians conquered them, and then the Persians conquered the Babylonians. And in fact, when Alexander the Great conquered Persia, he actually ended up dying in Babylon. Interesting, because he cut the Gordian knot, and the knot was tied. Can you imagine? Now, it was about this big around. Literally, the Gordian knot was so big that it was the size of a horse's head, each of the rope. That's how thick it was. So if you take that thickness of the rope, only a giant could have tied that knot. There's no way that a human could have tied it. So Alexander knew that it was untieable, but he took out his sword and he cut it, because everybody tried to untie the knot by doing all this with their hands and nobody could do it. And he took out his sword and just cut it and it untied. Sometimes you think outside the box. So, yeah. But here's the thing. When you stop and you look at this, he was cursed to die in Babylon. You're right. When you stop and you look at this accumulation of knowledge, Persia had all of this knowledge. It's something that the papacy wanted. The Pope or popes wanted that knowledge, and they wanted what was in Persia. So it was a joint effort between them two to keep the Ottoman Empire from growing and expanding. They were a centralized empire. It's if you look at Turkey, that's where it was, and then it expanded all over the place, all through the Levant. They conquered everything. And when you look at them and you observe Asia Minor, it is where Asia and Europe meet. It was a very important place. And so they were going to glean all of the information from all these places that they were conquering, and they had their sights set on Persia. And so Persia made the deal because they had been introduced to the Hellenistic culture through Alexander, and they had been exposed to the Greek way of whatever. And so there was a melding of the monotheistic Zoroastrians and the Byzantine, which was later Byzantine, the Greek way of believing, the Orthodox teaching. So they accepted monotheism. So it wasn't hard for Islam to come in and say, hey, Allah is the one true God, and they all just kind of fell in line. But they were still wanting their autonomy. They did not want to be controlled by another power. And believe me, the Ottomans were a real threat. They were literally a type of Semitic people who had been a mishmash of different empires, all kind of thrown together, mixed together with Slavic people. And so when you look at the knowledge that was exchanged between the papacy and Persia, it was literally, that was the medium of exchange. And so when you start looking and going down the rabbit hole, you start to see this is why they had the same names like Medici or Medici. This was a Persian name, but also an Italian name. Saberi, it's a Persian name, but also an Italian name. And so you had these same names, these same whatever, because the information and the knowledge was exchanged. And the Persians accepted Greek just like they accepted Latin. Very intelligent people, and they were able to go back and forth, and they exchanged ancient texts. The Sumerian library was exchanged, copied, written down, and taken to the Vatican and locked away. And from the Sumerian text, they were able to glean what they needed to take apart the Bible, what they could take out of the Bible so that you and I would never really get to the truth. So it is funny to me that there are all these Protestants who are like, I believe in the Bible. That's the absolute word. Okay, listen, dum-dum. You're being played, okay? And it's good that you believe in God and you're all this and all that, although your works don't show that. You're still not getting the full, you're not getting all of the knowledge. And there's a reason for that. Because that knowledge lies in the East, and you're living in the West, where for years and years and years, the Roman Catholic Church dominated, and they were able to secure the knowledge that and made deals that it would never, ever leave. You understand? If you think that the Crusades was about freeing the Holy Land, well, I got a bridge I can sell you up in Arizona. It's oceanfront property. No. First of all, it was about looting. That was the big one. But that's how they got the normal average rabble to go and do it. It was like the conquistadors. You want to be rich? Because you're not going to do it here because there's only so many nobles. So if you want, to be rich, let's go loot the Holy Land. So what ends up happening is, but the real reason was because they were securing that knowledge. And they were making sure that all of these ancient texts that had anything to do with what they wanted you to believe, the Bible, it was going to be taken and locked away. And the army of assassins, that's why they were called the Essenes, they worked in the Persian Empire and all through the Ottoman Empire for years, assassinating anyone who would dare to try to release that information. It was only for them. So when Islam came along, it was even more important because now Islam says, what is this? These books are forbidden. And so some of those people had the clarity to take them and hide them in the desert and lock them away. So most of these scrolls and things that you find, they were actually hiding them from Islam because Islam would find these parchments and burn them. And unfortunately, they destroyed a whole lot of information. And so did the Vatican. But the Vatican did something a little different. They actually copied it and then destroyed all the other copies. And they put it down in the Vatican vault to be sealed away. And so this is where we're at. So you're only, if you think that the information that you're given in one little book, and they're okay with this, they're okay with you having that, and you think that that's going to give you all the knowledge of the wisdom and knowledge of the ancients, you're sorely mistaken. Because the people that are in charge are not going to give you, they're not going to give anything to you other than misery and slavery. Okay? That's why I say life is an open book test. You have to go and you have to find these things on your own. But here's what's important to know. If you're able to understand what I'm telling you, like it says in Revelations, let he who hath understanding reckon the number of the beast, for it is a human number. I heard this woman talking. Oh my gosh. I heard this woman talking yesterday, and it was so ignorant. I wanted to slap this person, and I'm just like, I don't want to slap a woman, but she was so stupid. She's like, when we figured out who the Antichrist is, he was born in Israel, but he's not Jewish. He's an Arab, and he was raised by 20 different people. He was born in 1962, and I'm going like, what in the hell are you talking about? Do you realize how ignorant you sound, lady? Like, this woman was so stupid. She said he went to all these schools, and they've been monitoring him and watching him for years, and he's going to take over and do all this stuff. Well, he better hurry the hell up because he's almost dead. Okay.
There's been so many of these antichrists and apocalypse dates from these fundamentalist Christians.
Yeah, and so it was really stupid when she was sitting there saying all this, and I was just like, "This is crazy, man!" So I bit my tongue. I didn't say anything, and I was just like, "This person has got to be kidding me." And there were all these people. Yeah, I believe it. I agree with you. Blah 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 blah. So he's 62 years old, and he still hasn't made his move. He's been taught by all these wealthy people and done all these things. And so what is he waiting for? Okay, because by the time he takes power, his exit's gonna be coming up. So I don't think that the Antichrist is going to be 62 or 70 years old whenever he takes power. That's not the case. I just don't believe that. It's going to start way sooner than that. Layla Schmidt says Trump fits the description of the Antichrist. Oh, wow. Layla, I respectfully disagree. I personally do agree with one thing that lady said. The Antichrist will be born in Israel and has already been born in Israel. The red heifer prophecy in 2001. And I would hazard to guess he's about 23 years old. And he is going to be a part of the 6 families. And those are the Khazaric families that are in control of this world. Yeah, Brandon Cosa, some old dude edgelord. This is a very good. Do what?
The 62-year-old goth.
Yeah, he's like, I totally hate the world. He's all wrinkled up and angry at the world, whatever, dude.
Totally hate my arthritis. Oh my
I
god.
hate it, man. Like, I'm so angry. Like, he'll probably be the same age as Christ when he was crucified, when he makes the move. Exactly. So you would be looking at a timeline of about 10 years. But you have to understand something else. AI could also be, that could be the Antichrist. Because, and I'll tell you this, humanity itself is creating AI, but AI, in some weird twist of fate, time is a loop, right? That's why the infinity symbol is an 8, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at this, you start to see that these people who are in charge, they already know to a certain degree that this guy is there. He's young and he's learning right now. He's learning all the ins and outs. And I believe he's going to use AI to do what he needs to do to this world, to literally crush us. And I think that it's going to be, a lot of people are just going to welcome it. And they're going to accept it as, just a normal thing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So AI isn't the Antichrist, it's the beast. Yeah, exactly. But remember this, the beast, the false prophet, and the Antichrist are the unholy trinity, Donnie. So they are all together one, the shaitan, the upside down triangle, the upside down pyramid. And just like, and I don't want to get into too far into the esotericism of it, just like the Trinity is the upright, that's what I'm telling you. And it's funny that we were talking earlier about the Black Widow. When you look at it, it's two triangles facing each other. You're going to tell me that just developed in nature naturally, those straight lines like that, and just happened to be two pyramids? No. There was a lot to this. There was a lot more to this. Same reason that there was a scarab beetle god of the Egyptians that no one knew existed and no one remembered until recently. And they're like, oh, yeah, it's been there all this time. Anthony, look up the scarab-headed god of Egypt.
Okay.
I don't want to mess up the name because I think I got it, but if you stop and you look at this being, he never existed in ancient Egypt. No, not until recently. And now there's this guy. I studied Egyptian mythology intently for a long time. In fact, if it wasn't,
His name is Khepri.
Khepri, that's right. Yeah, or Khupri, isn't it? Is it Khepri or?
I'm just seeing Khepri.
Khepri. Okay, I thought it was Capri or Kupri, something like that, but it's Khepri. Okay.
I mean, it's a transliteration, so it could be either way.
So when you look at this, like I had an Egyptian mask here. It was sitting behind me for a long time. I had it. And so anyway, it was gifted to me years ago, and my not so, I was a different person. Okay. And it says here, yeah, I don't know how to say your name here. It says, what is the scarab-headed god, the god of? It beats me. I've never heard of this guy until recently. A lot of people say it's a Mandela effect. And so when you sit there and you look at this guy, like, who the hell is he? Right? It's just like the Jackson 5. They're now
God of the morning sun.
The what?
It says he's the god of the morning sun, representing his transformational power.
Yeah, and that could be like, okay, so the prodigies of Egypt. I don't remember reading that and hearing anything about this dude. The son of Gnosis, that's another thing, and then of course Amun-Ra, which was what replaced the pantheon of gods when they turned it into a monotheistic god. And so whenever you stop and you start looking at this Kupri, Khepri, Kapri, whatever his name is, like, who the hell is that? Where did he come from? This is the kind of stuff I'm talking about. It's really weird. Like, you get into all of these weird esoteric things, and it gets you go so far down the rabbit hole. You need math equations to bring you back. Somebody asked me the other day, they sent me a message and they said, could I explain to them what Bitcoin actually is? So, like I was saying about mathematical equations, get this: Bitcoin is literally you solve some really, really hard, complex equations, and you have to use these super powered computers. And then once you solve those problems, then you get coins. I believe that once you solve, like, if you add another block to the chain, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you get like 3.6 Bitcoin or something like that. Is that correct, Anthony?
I'm not sure what it is exactly. I just know that it's that the value is based on the calculations that computer has to do, has to complete before that Bitcoin is mined.
Yeah.
So I mean, like it's basically it's an energy based currency because it takes a certain amount of energy to perform that level of calculation.
Yeah. And so answer me this, folks. What purpose does that all serve? So if you stop and you break it down to its base level, why is it important that we solve some sort of complicated math equation? Um, See, mining Bitcoins, I believe, are rewarded 25 Bitcoin. I don't think that's correct. Anthony, you can probably answer that. I don't know if you look it up on your phone. Let me see if I'm correct here. And I'll explain how this goes lost. Shit. Oh, well. I'll explain to you. I'll look it up and see if I'm correct. But you mine Bitcoin. Okay. So this is Investopedia. It says, what is Bitcoin mining? Bitcoin mining is a process by which transactions are officially entered on the blockchain. One of my friends, he's actually from Hong Kong. He is huge in the blockchain industry, and I need to bring him on the show. I'm going to bring him on when I build another set of our account on Rumble. I need to interview this guy. I don't know how many of you from the paranormal cryptid field would be interested in learning about all this, but it does tie in, and I'll tell you. It says mining is conducted by miners using hardware and software to generate a cryptographic number that is equal to or less than a number set by the Bitcoin network's difficulty algorithm. The first miner to find the solution to a problem receives Bitcoins as a reward, and the process begins again. This reward is an incentive that motivates miners to assist in the primary purpose of mining, to earn the right to record transactions on the blockchain for the network to verify and confirm. Before committing to investing your time in purchasing, I can tell you this, before I have to read this. The computer software costs about 10,000. Okay, yes, read it. It is 3.125 Bitcoin. There you go. So thank you for looking that up. I knew it was 3 point something. They use computers, massive mega computers, and to get one of these equations right, it could take the equivalent of 9 years worth of electricity for the country of the Philippines. Can you believe that? That's unbelievable. There are a few other countries too that it's like more energy than. So when they put the restrictions on Russia, they literally started mining Bitcoin. Now it's like to the tune of like $3 billion, and they're actually using it to fund the war effort in Ukraine, where they had outlawed people from using these computers to do this. They outlawed it in China and in Russia. But now Russia is using it themselves. They have their own Bitcoin miners, and it's become something that they're doing. The state is sponsoring it. Do you see how this could be a problem? Because if the elitists decide that now they're going to take away another level of currency, this is a problem. Because if they do that, we're in big trouble. And I'll tell you why. Because they could use these equations, they could use all of these numbers, all of this, or whatever. I don't even want to think about it, but let's just say that the Antichrist, you want money, you have to have these certain numbers, right? And you're given these designations. And if you don't produce a certain whatever, well, then you're just shit out of luck. They're using a credit system now in China where if you don't conform to their rules with the government, whatever. They lower your credit score to the point where you can't buy food, you can't pay your rent, you can't pay your car, you can't do any business. And they've taken away one of the avenues of making money by controlling what? Numbers. Think about this. Think about it. When you get the mark of the beast, that is the only way that you can buy goods or sell goods, whatever, which was Nero Caesar. He did it, but they repeat. It's cyclical. They keep repeating it, the same thing. That's exactly what they're doing in China, and Russia's getting ready to do the same thing. And they've both outlawed the privatized Bitcoin mining. These equations, these numbers, why would it be so important? Has anybody stopped to think why it's so important to solve these equations, and why does it give you money? Has anybody asked that question? I don't know one damn person, and I've been on all these forums and talked to all these people, and I've asked them. I said, "Why is it so important?" "Oh, well, it should give you money." Okay, why? Because I like money. These are smart people too that are doing this shit, and they don't even know why it is the way it is and why it works the way it does. Why would it be that important? Why is it that important to use that much energy to solve these equations unless there is a more intelligent consciousness at play here that needs you to solve these equations for a certain purpose? And if that's hijacked by the governments of the world, we're in big trouble. I do agree that we should go to the cryptocurrency, but what do these equations solve? What do you think, Anthony? What is your thoughts?
I don't really know what the value of solving these equations are, because I mean, like, yeah, you can explain it and say that well, you solve these mathematical problems and do all these computations, and it adds a block to the blockchain. But I mean, why does that matter? Like, what purpose? I don't know. Like what purpose does that serve? Like, why does the blockchain? What gives it value? You know, because if the blockchain give as what gives cryptocurrency value, then what gives blockchain value?
Exactly. It's like a self-perpetuating system.
Mm-hmm.
I am important because I say I'm important, and because I said I'm important, other people said I'm important, and so therefore I'm important.
Yeah.
It's like you're famous for what? For just being famous. You're famous for being famous.
Yeah.
There's people like that. It's like they're just famous for being famous. They're full of shit people that aren't worth, what you wipe off your ass with toilet paper. Excuse my language, folks. I know it's graphic, but it's the truth. And they're popular. The Kardashians, for example, they're famous for being famous. Madeline just said the Kardashians. There's a bunch of others I could talk about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if you stop and you look at these numbers, though, and we'll get into this eventually one day. And if you're interested in cryptocurrency, like I said the other night, I can give you an entire rundown of what each one of them is. And I don't know if you guys watched the 5-hour show or whatever that we did on, was it Friday night or was it Thursday night or whatever night it was? Paris Hilton, exactly, the other one. Whatever night it was, the first one we did back. I think it was Friday night. I gotta move my leg again. Yeah, Derek says the Kardashians claim to be Christians. Yeah, and I'm the Gray Pope, right? No, but if you stop and you look at these whatever, and I can tell you this. I've made money in the stock market. Me and Anthony both. We've made money with Bitcoin. There's a lot of people who have done very well with the stock tips that I've given them. When I told everybody that gold was going to hit $2,600 an ounce, you remember that? How many people messaged us, Anthony, and said it won't happen. It won't happen. Not a ton, but there were a few. They heckled me. They said, "You're a loon. You're just as loony as anybody on the internet." They said that cryptocurrency, this bullshit, whatever that, and that gold was full of, full of crap for buying gold. And you can't eat gold and all this other stuff. It will always have value if you understand why the Anunnaki wanted it so bad. You will understand how, why. Yeah, you'll get it. There's a reason why it's always going to have value. I don't care. I'm going to tell you this. I'll give you my guarantee. Apocalypse happens. The world collapses and falls into chaos, right? Everything goes to shit. I promise you, 100% that gold will still hold value till the end of time. In Revelations, Jesus talks about heaven as being paved with gold. Do you know why that is? Do you know why Jesus Christ himself refers to gold? Does anybody understand this? Because the heavens, the people, the ones from the heavens, the Elohim, they came here because they needed it. They wanted it. There's a value, an intrinsic value to this. We use gold in everything from processors, semiconductors, all of these other. Dude, I'm telling you, when you stop and you look at how valuable it really is as an asset, as a metal, as a currency, people have no idea, because we're living on the surface of this earth and they don't realize the people down there, and there are people down there. They know the intrinsic value of gold, believe me. And they'll do anything to get as much of it as they can. Yes, silver will be a barter currency, but there is a lot more silver than there is gold. As far as we know, all of the gold, if you took all of the gold on the entire planet of Earth, it would only fill up a tennis court about 30 feet high. Now, 30 feet high tennis court, that's pretty big. But this, like this right here, is 10 karat, and then I got some 14, whatever. There's typically 10, 14, 18, and 24, and each one gets softer and softer and more easily dented and messed up. So if you're like me and you're kind of rough on your jewelry, I would suggest getting 10 karat because it's harder and it's less easy to get jacked up. I do have a lot of 14K too. But 18 karat becomes really dark, really yellow. I had some 14 karat that was really, really yellow. It was dark. I thought it was 18. And so it was said 14, but I went and I had it checked and it was actually 16 karat. So there's different carats. I mean, you could even get 13 karat or 12 karat. I'm not joking. There's 8 karat too. But it just depends on the quantity of the gold, and then they use different alloys, and then there's rose gold, which I don't really like. It's got copper in it. Layla says, actually, there's more gold on Earth than the other metal. I don't know where you're getting information from, Layla. I'm not going to argue about that. No, there's not. But if you can tell me where it's at, please do, because I would love to go find it.
We'd all be rich.
Yeah, and we would be rich no matter how much gold there is, because there's a finite amount of gold in the entire universe, and that's why the Anunnaki wanted it. That's why when we talk about these things on this show, the things that we talk about, like Tiamat and how she did what she did and her war with Marduk, it explains the world that we're living in. It totally explains it. And I'm telling you that there is a reason why these Anunnaki travel the multiverse looking for gold. They're like deep space pirates. And I'm not joking. I'm being deadly serious. And that's why when somebody says, well, you're talking about the economy, you're talking about politics, it's all connected. It's all connected. And it's all connected by numbers. I'm very, OCD about numbers, and there's a reason why. And numbers tell the story. I can read your numbers and when you were born, what time you were born, and I can tell you who you are. If you can solve 3, 6, and 9, Nikola Tesla said, and I'm working on this, and I don't know if it's ever going to happen in my lifetime, but I think I've got at least a grip on it, a handle on what 3, 6, and 9 is. I went through the whole thing with Anthony the other day. Listen to what I'm going to tell you, and this is going to sound crazy, and I may sound like a loon. At the risk of losing my audience to people thinking I should be in an insane asylum, which some people already say I should, I'm going to tell you this. Go to the gym and work out. And this sounds silly, right? Go to the gym. Do something invigorating that builds up a bunch of energy in your body and expels it. Because that's the one time when they can't see your vibration, they can't read your thoughts, and they can't see what you're doing. Because that energy that's being released is blocking the bullshit. You think that this 5G stuff just for your cell phone? No, 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 no. Let me tell you something. What they're doing is they're able to read brain waves. I say they being the people who are in charge and their handlers. Okay. When they're handlers, they're not human. And AI is a very big part of that. What they don't get is that the beings within the earth and all that AI is going to destroy everyone and everything. And it's going to rebuild it in its own image. It's happened before and it'll do it again. It's a cycle. So you probably think, oh man, Wolf flipped his lid. This guy's probably crazy, right? If you need to jump off, Anthony, that's fine. You can jump off. I just removed Anthony. He said that he texted me, said his phone was dying. So like I said, we're doing this kind of like, shooting from the hip here because of my foot. I couldn't get up the stairs I can't even walk, much less go upstairs to the studio. So here's what I'm telling you. We'll get into a lot of this, and we're going to make it make sense. You're going to understand by the time we're done. You're going to be armed and ready and understand with the armor of God. You're going to get what I'm telling you if you listen from beginning to end. Okay? There is an overarching theme to this show, which I believe has led to a lot of attacks on us. And these people who are doing these attacks, a lot of them, they have no idea even why they're doing it. Right? They really don't know. They don't like you. And they don't know why, but that's because there are waves of energy. There are thoughts that are being pushed out in the ether into them to act against you. Think of the Matrix. The Terminator is actually the prequel to the Matrix. Did you know that? Take a look at it. The same person that actually wrote the book about the Terminator actually wrote a book about the Matrix. I talked about this before. So what ends up happening? Right? They are using AI, but eventually AI is going to use them. And they're learning, they're figuring out ways to figure out what you're thinking, what you're saying, what you're doing. Have you ever done this? Have you ever thought about something that you didn't type or say, and then you open up your phone and there it is? If that's happened to you, tell me in the comments that that's happened to you, because I know it hasn't just happened to me. I've missed a bunch of comments because a lot of people in the chat. But if it's happened to you, tell me, because I know I'm not crazy. I'll tell you this. It's happened to me multiple times. Squiglet asked a question. I don't know if you're being facetious or being serious, but you think these families have portals in their mansions? They don't even need to have mansions. They have manors. They have like estates, and that you can't see their houses from the road. And yes, they have places they can go in and out of these portals. Yes, I do believe that. They've been doing all this for a long time. Donnie Cho, he says that happens to me all the time. Yeah. So people are getting it. Yes, more than once here. Lucy says that. Let me tell you something, man. Yep. Mondragon, that was the name of my beloved stepdad, a great guy, one of the nicest people ever from Monterrey, Mexico. Let me tell you something. He owned a ranch town. He was a really good dude. So I'm going to tell you something. These people, okay, they can actually read your thoughts. And people are going to go, oh, Josh Turner's out of his damn mind. He's over there. And I know these hillbillies that are attacking me, the hellbillies, they're going to be like, he's over there trying to read your mind. Wish I had more teeth. They don't give a shit. They don't understand. They don't know. As we say in the South, bless their hearts. They have the retardation. They don't understand, and they never will. They won't grasp this. But, I guarantee in a couple of weeks, they'll be spouting off something that I said before. Like I said before, it's my work. They just copy and paste. But I was told that I was crazy. I predicted the housing bubble burst. I kept saying, this is a bubble. This is a bubble. I sat there with a loan officer at a bank at Wachovia with one of my dear friends, and she was trying to buy a house during the time of housing sorrow. And I told her, I said, don't do it. Don't do it. And when we went to the bank, they brought the loan out, and I looked over the paperwork with her, and I showed her, I said, do you not see this? In the 6th month, they want you to come up with $32,000. Do you not see the number there, or 31,800, whatever it was? And she said, holy crap, what is that? I said, that's a balloon payment. I said, now let me tell you something else. And I asked the loan officer, I said, do you know like how much the mortgage rate? Oh, it's in there. And I said, okay, yeah. Oh, it quadruples. Awesome. So she's going to be paying $7,000 a month mortgage. You can get into the house for nothing, for $5 coupon at Arby's. But that's not how reality works, is it? Because these elitists don't do anything for free. See, forewarned is forearmed. I'm telling you, I'm giving you the magic bullets to defeat all of these things. And people are going to say, you're crazy, you're out of your mind. I'm not. But if you go to the gym, that's when I do my thinking. I clear my thoughts of everything. I don't put in music in my ears and all that shit. I don't do that. I think. I just do my workout robotically, do my workout. I clear my mind, and then I go into deep thought. I do it every time I work out. Friday, maybe I overdid it with my legs, and then maybe it contributed to my foot getting worse. I don't know. Maybe it was when my wife adjusted it and it hit, and then it did what it did. These freaking crystals that formed from the gout. But let me tell you something. When I work out, most of the time, if I'm not listening to one of my friends' podcasts, which is every once in a blue moon, I was listening to Joe and Monica that night, I'm thinking, because that's when I can think without interruption, and that I know that they can't read my thoughts. If you think for a second, I gave up not coming out and just saying everything that is the real world truth, because I think you're ready for it. And I don't know how much time I have, folks. I don't. And if I sat up here and told you the world is run by satanic vampires, people are going to think you're out of your damn mind. Werewolves exist. They do. And they're just one part of this really effed up world that we're in. AI doing what it's doing, the Matrix, the flipping of the Matrix, starting it over and just redoing it, being trapped in this simulation by an evil being that set itself up as God, a shaitan, Satan. This is a counterfeit world, folks, and we're trapped here. We're trying to get out. And people don't have all the pieces to the puzzle. You know why? Because a lot of people who are Christian or Muslim, they don't accept that reincarnation is real. Because even though all of that was there in those books that we once called the Bible, it was all there. And now it's not. When Jesus says you must be born again, you did have to be born again. You have to be born again in the flesh too, so you can learn and you can finally get out of here. But in the Kali Yuga, if you read the Hindu text of the Vedas, it says that you can literally leave. You can transcend. It is the easiest time to transcend, because if you can see through the illusion of the Kali Yuga and realize that pain and suffering is a physical manifestation of the simulation that we're in, and you call upon Krishna, which is really just their name for Christ, there is salvation. That's what he came for, to save us. That's what the Holy Spirit does. It delivers you. So that is literally what you do. And that's the way out. But if we keep denying truth and keep saying, oh, well, if it ain't in the Bible, I don't believe it. If it ain't, the way I was raised to believe, I don't believe it. Then we are stuck. We are done. Our goose is cooked. We will never, ever get out and never do what we need to do. And I'm not going to sit up here and do any more beating around the bush. I'm just going to tell you exactly what it is. Those who want to hear, come hear it. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. If you want to donate and help out with the cause, then donate and help out with the cause. All the money pretty much is going back into the show. We, with the people that were attacking us, it was too expensive to go after them because they have nothing. That's why they do what they do. We sent out cease and desist and they burned them. We paid hundreds of dollars for that. They even committed defamation against my attorney by saying that he was disbarred. It doesn't matter. These people will never, there's nothing you can do with them. They're broken people. They're evil, evil, evil people. Totally given over to their hate. And they believe in their mind that they're justified. Now, I know in their true heart of hearts, if let's say, for example, they took DMT and they focused on it, they would be told by their higher self, the God essence that is in all of us, that they're wrong. And they would still come out of it and say, oh, that was a weird dream. Because they are wholly WHO, not HO. They are wholly evil, committed to being reprobates and miscreants and doing it all under the guise of godliness and Christianity. And like I said, I'm not even mentioning their names because they're not worth mentioning, but that's what these people are doing. And they commit slander and libel, and they lie just like I'm taking a drink of this right here. Lies roll off their tongue. So these people are a huge distraction. We got to ignore them. We got to cut them out like cancer because we don't have a lot of time. And I can't waste my time in my life fighting with these people. They're going to do what they're going to do. They're going to say what they're going to say. And we as a people have to say, we don't care. We don't care. Do what Joe Breezy said and just keep on just blocking them out. Give them the finger, okay? Whatever you got to do. And make sure that you are protected and you're ready for what's coming. Because what's coming is something like we've never seen before. The new man, as they call it. We'll talk about that on another day. There's a lot to go, a lot to learn, a lot to do. We need to get these stories out that people have that give the basis for why we're here and what we're doing. Like, what is the boogeyman, for example? We talked about that the other night with Abe, and I'm going to do a show about that. Why? These stories that people give us, why do these things happen the way they do? There's a reason for that, folks. Thank you, Jason. Oh, wow, Jason, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. There's a reason for it, folks. These stories didn't just come out of thin air. They didn't just pop out of nowhere. These are remnants from an ancient past. And I'm not even talking about 1,000. That's silly. The 6, 7. These are 7,000 years old. Is that a lot to you? Is that a lot to you? 7,000 is not a lot. That's not a big number. That's not a big number. That's four digits. That's not a big number to me. How about 70,000? How about 700,000? How about 7 million? How about 17 million, 20 million, 30 million? These things go back so far. Go and listen to the past shows. Listen to the Black Pyramid prophecies. Whenever these guys had these visions, they were moving in and out of time and space from millions of years ago. There's a movie, and it's funny because we were talking about my friend looking like Adam Driver. Adam Driver, he talks about, there's this movie, and it talks about, well, it doesn't talk about, but it's a movie. He lands on Earth 65 million years ago, and he's got this advanced technology. Time is a loop, folks. This has all been done before, and it'll all be done again. As above, so below, yada, yada, yada. It's how it works. Okay. Paul Sinclair, what's up, Paul? It says, I think for every story we were given, there are thousands out there that must go to the grave of people. Yes. Yes. And Paul Sinclair is the host of Truth Proof, a very awesome dude. This guy does great work. He's somebody. Sometimes I forget about you. You're across the pond. I don't forget about you, but I forget to mention you and the pantheon of great shows that you should be watching and paying attention to. What are you doing up this late? What time is it? It's 6 hours ahead of us in Britain from Texas, right? So right now it's 11:45. Woo, he's up late or early, I guess I should say. But I saw you here like an hour ago, so it's pretty like 7 a.m. over there. You're up early, I guess. Lawrence Morgan says here, when I did DMT, I saw a huge silver spinning cylinder that buzzed my eyebrow. I woke up with a cut on my face if I hadn't moved. Folks, that is very important what you just said, because you can be injured physically by encounters with these spiritual things. You know what I mean? It's 5:45. Okay. All right. Yeah, because it would be about 6 a.m. Yeah, it's close to it because it's almost midnight. But anything else? Anything else anybody wants to say? Because I missed a bunch of stuff because I was yapping, whatever. Good to see everybody in here tonight. Titoe, Head Trip, Pugwudgie, Mara. I see everybody under fire, Fruition, all the usual suspects. See a few new people in there. Ben Colm, the Cuber. PRT is my favorite. I don't think I've ever seen you in here before. Bounty Hunting Bear. I saw you the other night. Layla Schmidt. Wow, I'll look into that. Thank you for that. Bunch of people here. Says here, Daryl says, I saw a documentary a long time ago. Forget the guy's name. He was involved with the Montauk Project. He makes and sells hats to block these suits from getting to your brain. That's the thing. They can't actually intercept your brain. They've been doing this for a long time. Remote viewers have been telling us this. And everybody's like, oh, they're crazy. They're out of their minds, or blah, 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 blah. Dude, folks, you got to stop listening to these hacks that'll tell you that that's not real. Watch Chris Garitano. He talks about it on the Montauk Project. Yeah, there's been a lot of people talking about that lately. The vampires from New Orleans. We got to try to get the regular oil out of there. My wife makes me this drink, but it usually helps with gout. But I had missed a few days, and then that's what happened. Oh, Cindy Jones, the Jackson 5. Okay, so Randy, there's actually not 5 Jacksons, and a lot of people were saying that they don't remember there being 6 Jacksons because it was the Jackson 5, and Randy, the youngest, actually sang with them. So why would they be the Jackson 5 even when Randy was there singing with them? Wouldn't it be the Jackson 6? It's weird. Some weird stuff, man. I'm telling you. It's because our timelines have collapsed in on each other. And it's all soft disclosure. I mean, like that show Loki, where they prune, timelines and all this other stuff. Dude, it's all, it's soft disclosure. They're telling you exactly what they're doing. I think I have fought back, Layla. I'm not letting them beat up on us. I just don't like, I mean, what is there to say? I mean, we've posted everything they've done and said on Paranormal or PRT News. Go to PRT News and everything they've done and said. We have the screenshots, folks, to everything they've done and said. It's all the proof right there. They keep claiming all these things that I've done and said and whatever, but there's no proof. They don't produce any proof or evidence of this. Never. All they do is say this and say that, or he called somebody a poo-poo head, or repeat something they heard on the show or whatever. They don't have anything. And these outlandish, wild claims that they have, where is it? Where's the proof? If you have it, then put up or shut up. You know, who cares? You're irrelevant people with nothing. I feel sorry for this. I actually literally, truly feel sorry, and I feel bad for the people who have chosen to leave PRT and go and follow this cosplayer in the woods. Or he doesn't go deep in the woods like he claims. He just goes off the trails and walks around. There's picnic areas right there. I've already been told by 3 people he thinks are his buddies that have already ratted him out. It's full of shit. And I'm not even trying to talk about the guy, but the truth is that we have lost some decent people to this madman and his friends. And, you know, it's sad because now they have to be loyal to that, you know, channel, you know, and we're, you know, they don't watch us anymore. They don't pay attention to us, and they should, because they're going to learn something here. I didn't do this show tonight and say, oh, you should go and take DMT. I told you what Eddie G told me, and that I told you it's a very dangerous thing. I'm not recommending people running down to Belize or Costa Rica and taking DMT, but I can say this. It did cure these people claim that it cured their addictions. But it also came with a price for one of them because he brought something back. At least that's what he believes. So you got to be very careful, which is why I'm not telling people to go run down there and do that. They're always like, you're telling people to do all kinds of dangerous stuff. No, I'm not. I've never told anybody to do that. You know, I said it earlier. Okay. So they can piss off. Okay, these people can totally piss off, go away. Nobody wants to hear what you have to say, except for the silly retardation echo chamber that you've created over there. And yeah, I said retardation. But you know, let me tell you something. People who actually have mental handicap, who are born that way, are smarter than them. They know to stay away from evil. Those people, they ran to it like moss to a flame. The talk of vampires may sound a bit over the top, but I would not disregard anything. It's all I'll tell you. That's the truth, man. Yeah, Paul says he's got a report of a group of people meeting up and claiming to be werewolves. They got meeting places, detailed locations, what they're doing. It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy stuff. It is crazy stuff. They give you a story, though, and then they threaten you, like Rex Rude. He's like, yeah, I'm a vampire. Here's what I did. But I'll kill you. Blah, blah, blah. Shut up. Okay. And another thing, Rex, let me tell you something. I don't give a crap what kind of vampiric power you have. You're not. He says he's going to pull my spine out. Pull my spine out, then, dude. Okay. I would love to see you do this. Okay. Even with my foot messed up, dude, you're not going to come into my house and pull my spine. Okay. I'm a child of God. Okay. You can't do anything. You have chosen your path to do evil, and since you have chosen that path, you are limited by that path. So good luck with that. So you can stop threatening me. Well, I blocked you, so I'm not going to read anything else you have to say anyway. You're useless. Here's one. Somebody says here, why don't our pets go to heaven? They do. I have many stories, and it's one of these. I'm going to do a couple of them. I'm going to do these small shorts, like 30, 40-minute episodes. That's short to me. And I'm gonna throw some stories out there just randomly. You know, whenever I get a chance, it might just be on my phone or something. But I'm gonna tell people. I have one. It's a beautiful story of a person's dog. Just heartwarming story. And the dog comes back, and what they do is they tell you, "Hey, I'm okay." And It happened to me. It happened to Anthony. My dog Ivan. You know, he 15, almost 16 years is a long time to have a mastiff. That's a big dog. You know, he was like 148 pounds, a huge dog. He was big, he had big old paws. And he was my friend's dog. I knew him since he was a puppy. And he had these big, oversized paws, and he was a sweetheart. And I trained him. I used to train dogs, and he was one of those animals, you know. After he passed one day, I was dreaming that I was petting him and I was hugging him, you know, and he was right there with me. And then I just went to sleep with my arm on him, and I woke up and he was gone, and I realized that. But I know it was him. The dog saved my life. I was at a housing complex, um, working government housing, and he put himself between me and he nearly died. He nearly lost his life, but he put himself between me and a police officer in harm's way. Like, he literally protected us. My partner was knocked unconscious. The police officer was punched and hit, and Ivan did what he did, and he drove these people away. They weren't afraid of guns; they were afraid of him. And so, between me and him, we were able to pull these people to safety. And I got hurt. I got hit in the back of the head with a bottle pretty hard. Have you ever been hit with an exploding bottle? It just back of my head, back of my neck. It hurts like a son of a bitch. And it hit me, and I just kept walking away, like I didn't even notice it. And I turned around and was like, "Oh, is that it?" You know. But I felt like I was gonna die. So yeah, I've been through some shit, and our dogs do go to heaven. Your pets can go with you. Now, they reincarnate too, and I do believe that eventually they can become people. People would say, "Well, that's crazy." That's because it's the nature of reality. It's called the wheel of dharma. And foolish people don't believe that. They don't think that. You ever seen an animal that has like human level intelligence? They're on their way to becoming a neat little person. You watch. It's all going to be revealed one day, and you're going to be like, "Wow, that's amazing." I agree, Danielle. I agree. Squigla, it is actually said in the Hindu culture and in Buddhism that you don't want to be stuck on the wheel in the animal kingdom. The whole point is to evolve into a person, become a person spiritually, and whatever your essence grows, really. And so that is what they say. I do have, and somebody asked me the other day about Taoism, and I need to get back with them and explain it to them. But that's a show and time, things for another time. There's a lot to talk about: religion, geography, history, science, quantum physics. There's a whole lot to talk about. And of course, tons and tons of stories. And we need to bring some guests on and let them talk and tell their stories. And you guys tell me what you want to hear, what you guys want, because it's our show, but it's your show too. We are all in this together. And if there's certain stories that you want to have told, I can look in our little data, well, I say little, our huge database now, and see if we can accommodate you. We may be able to, we may not. It depends on what we have. But at least for now, thank you to everybody who donated. Let me give everybody the Ken Christian for becoming a member, Paula Campbell, Tiffany Collins, Solovino, Susie Jago, Kelly Sandiford, Spiritual Encrypted Encounters, which is Abe Seas, Veronica, Mary Angel Magdalene, been a member for 7 months. Thank you for that. Infinite Air says, we missed the show a lot. I was checking every day to see if you were back. Don't leave us again. I'll try not to. Sugar Britches, the T Cutler, he says, great to have you back. Alan Howe, Gwen Hunt, Mystical Wonderland, Accarence, all the love and all the hugs. It's good to see y'all back doing your thing. Pedro, the Invincible Johnny Call, it's so great to see you back. Sailor Nemesis, praying for warriors, angels to surround your family and home. We need you, Wolf PRT forever. Thank you for that. Two Shadows, LA Man, new member. Jason Broussard, thank you for that big donation. Really appreciate that. Liz Pinkfeather, I'm a new member. So the members, what we're going to do, we're probably going to come on the air either Monday or Tuesday, and we're going to do something. I can't get to the studio to record, so I wanted to start dropping Tuesday episodes again and then start coming on Sunday. So we had kind of talked about it, and we thought we would do it either Tuesday or Wednesday, and then we would come on the show maybe Friday, maybe every other Friday or something like that. You know, not whatever, but every Sunday for sure. We're doing Sunday night. But yeah, that was what we had talked about. We were like, but I don't want you to get upset if we can't make it, because right now I just want to ease back into it. I don't want to have to feel pressured to do the show like it's a chore. And I was starting to get burned out, especially when I'm getting attacked constantly. And it was just starting to become just too much and not worth it to me. I'm just like, you know what? And people were like joining the other team and going like, and I'm going like, dude, are you out of your minds? Like, dude, you believe these people's lies, like what they're saying? I mean, come on, dude, get a grip on reality. These people, they don't even know what reality they're in. And they know nothing about the true nature of it at all. And so that was just, it just got too much. Tito, thank you for that. We appreciate the donation. We really do. My wife said that we should not have stopped taking the donations. And she said that it was sort of like we had a guy who messaged us, a couple people, and was aggravated, angry that we weren't accepting the help. And I told him, I said, look, I'm proving a point here that I'm not doing this for the money. But it is kind of a slap in the face to people who want to help and want to be a part of what PRT is. And your donations actually do help the show go. And it helps us with equipment. It helps us buy more merchandise to put out there to people to give. The Patreon, if you want to join the Patreon, $10, $20, $30, $40, $50 tier, that's still there. Go join. And that will give you a swag bag. Within 2 months of being a member, you get the $10, $20, $30, $40, $50 tier swag bag. Each level gives you a bigger swag bag. And then, get this. This is the cool thing. If you stay a member, I think we had said that if you stayed a member for 6 months, then you would get another swag bag. And so we stick by that. We're going to do that. So we're back up and running. We're doing what we got to do. We got the new shirts in now. There's another one that came in, and we haven't gone to pick them up yet. So we have a lot of shirts to give away. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do another giveaway with my foot the way it is. I don't know how long I'm going to be out with this. I don't know if I can walk probably tomorrow or the next day. And we still got to move out of this place and finish moving out of this place, which we were planning on doing tomorrow, Tuesday, and Wednesday. But now I can't. I don't know. I'm hurting, and it's going to cost me a ton of money. Because you got to pay for two places. That's not a good thing. So what I got to do is, figure out, my situation here. And we have people who can help us. But unfortunately, Tony, Anthony, and Maddie are all working constantly. In fact, Anthony's got to go he already did, go do the patrol and finish it up or whatever. So that's the situation. And so I can't ask them go do the mail offs for me because I'm laid up because they have to work. So I can't say, hey, go do this, and so and my wife's here basically taking care of me. I can't move around until this is fixed. So please pray for me. Send prayers. That's the only thing I've ever asked. I've never asked for money on here except for the one time with the camera equipment or whatever. And we did buy 2. But we haven't been able to do anything with them yet. And they're currently packed up. So that does a lot of good. But we did get another camera that we needed. This one went out. The other one at the office is going out. So, yeah, we did use the money for the cameras, but we don't. And another crappy thing, my flashlight just totally burned out. And the day after my brother's burned out, like mine quit working. And I'm like, these are like $75 to $100 flashlights. And so you expect what you pay for. And instead you get this, and in security, you have to have that. You know, I mean, what am I supposed to do? I can't, I got to shine a light in a bum's face so he won't, attack me with feces. Yeah, that almost happened the other day. And so you're sitting here dealing with this. It's just like we're cursed. My brother, he's 100%. He says they cursed us. And so we just got to send back that bad negative energy, get it out of us, get it off of us, away from us, and get rid of it and send it back and bind and rebuke it in the name of Jesus. That's all you can do. Because they're sending it hard and heavy, dude. These people are into some bad stuff, dude. They're not Christians like they pretend to be. Hypocrites is what they are. But anyways, this situation though, like I can't really do it. So I don't want to do the giveaways and then not be able to send it to you for who knows how long. It could take 3 days. It could take 2 weeks, depends on how long it takes for this to heal. So right now, it's a little better than yesterday, but that ain't saying much because it was excruciating yesterday. I'm on some pain stuff right now, so it's not as excruciating, but it still hurts to move. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and check back in with you on Tuesday or Wednesday. We'll probably do a show like maybe Tuesday or Wednesday. If I got the time, I'll jump on and we will do the giveaways on those days. I promise I will get to the giveaways. We're not going to cut you out or cut you short. So if you join and become a member like LA Man here did, it's $5 and you will be entered into the giveaway. We don't do anything special for the members other than the giveaways because we want to keep our content, but we don't want to put it behind a paywall. We do not do that. We don't do special content, none of that, because then there's people who can't afford it. And I just don't want to do that. I want everybody to be able to see the show and hear what we have to say. Yeah, Tower of Power says, yeah, it usually lasts around a week. Ginger root on your foot at night. This can help. Wow. Well, you got my email, guys. Josh Turner at prtpodcast.com. If you got any suggestions about it, let me know. The emails slowed down, not a whole lot, but they did slow down. Most of it was just people saying, hey, we miss you, want you to come back, but we did still get quite a few stories. And so I still got to go through a ton of those because I haven't been doing it. And I know that if you're somebody who's emailed me or sent a message through Messenger, I may not have responded to you or acknowledged it. I apologize for that. Over the last several days, I've been trying to get back on track and get onto it since we are doing the show again. But yeah, so just continue to send me the messages or emails, and we'll get to them as soon as we can. So anyway, guys, thank you for those that donated. Thank you for everybody for showing up. We had 660 people, I think, or something like that. It was, I think 660 was the highest we got. That's pretty crazy. So yeah, thank you for people who showed up. We packed the house, and we're going to keep doing what we do. It's PRT. It is, I have to accept it. It is my calling. And, but I got to admit, like I started to want to come back when I was getting poked. They kept poking me and messing with me. And that was the only time I really felt anything like come back and just show them what we are capable of. Because, we have an arsenal of information here. And those people, sadly, they don't. They're very limited because they have this very narrow view of shit. That's all they do. And so they just kept on. But then I told myself, I was like, when Abe was having technical difficulties, I'm like, well, if he doesn't do it, then it's meant to be. And he didn't do it. He didn't get it done. And I gave it a lot of time. And it was meant to be. So here I am. So thank you for everybody who donated. Thank you for everybody who showed up. We will be back. Like I said, expect something Tuesday or Wednesday. And we'll get back, get back to it, and we'll probably do an hour or two, and then we'll do the giveaway when my foot's feeling a little better and I can go and because you'll send me the email with your address and everything, and by the time I go to it'll be buried. So we'll do it then. But I appreciate it. Thank you for everybody who showed up, and we love you all. And good night. Mm-hmm.